Robert Henderson's eyes widen in shock as he feels something wriggling against his crotch. A miniature sandworm-like creature has attached itself to his genital area, and he's standing in an alien bathroom on the Klingon homeworld. This was definitely not covered in his diplomatic training. The human ambassador takes a deep breath, straightens his formal attire, and steps back into the bustling banquet hall. The high-ceilinged room echoes with the guttural sounds of Klingon conversation and the clink of metal goblets. Robert's gaze darts around, searching for a familiar face from the medical team. His hand instinctively moves to cover the unusual bulge in his pants. As he weaves through the crowd of towering Klingons, their ridged foreheads and stern expressions looming over him, Robert feels a firm grip on his shoulder. He turns to find himself face to face with Sarah, a striking Klingon diplomat. Her dark eyes narrow as they scan his face, then drop to the conspicuous protrusion in his trousers. "Human," she growls, her voice low and demanding. "Explain yourself." Robert swallows hard, his mind racing. He opens his mouth to speak, but no words come out. The creature shifts against his skin, sending a shiver up his spine. Sarah's grip tightens, her patience clearly wearing thin. There's been an incident," Robert finally manages, his voice barely above a whisper. "In the restroom, I encountered a creature. It's attached itself to me." Sarah's expression shifts from suspicion to intrigue. She leans in closer, her breath hot on Robert's ear. "Show me," she commands. Reluctantly, Robert leads her to a secluded corner of the hall. With trembling hands, he reveals the small worm-like organism clinging to his flesh. Sarah's eyes widen, a mix of surprise and admiration crossing her features. "By Kales," she breathes, "do you know what you found?" Robert shakes his head, confusion and embarrassment warring on his face. "This is a rare Klingon symbiote," Sarah explains, her voice filled with reverence. "It's highly prized among our people for its unique properties." "Properties," Robert echoes, his voice cracking. Sarah's lips curl into a predatory smile. "It's known for its potent aphrodisiac effects. Its presence on a human is unprecedented, a sign of great virility and honor in our culture." Robert's relief at understanding the situation quickly gives way to a new wave of anxiety. "How do I remove it?" he asks urgently. Sarah's expression hardens. "Remove it? That would be a grave insult to our customs." "No, Ambassador Henderson, you must allow the symbiote to complete its cycle." The human diplomat feels the weight of interstellar relations pressing down on him. He glances around the room, noticing other Klingons beginning to take an interest in their hushed conversation. Sarah leans in once more, her voice dropping to a seductive purr. "Perhaps we should discuss this matter further. In private, I can explain the cultural significance and potential benefits of your unexpected guest." Robert hesitates, caught between diplomatic duty and personal discomfort. The symbiote pulses against his skin, sending waves of warmth through his body. He nods, almost imperceptibly. As Sarah leads him from the banquet hall, Robert notices the eyes of other Klingon diplomats following them. Some wear expressions of jealousy, others of newfound respect. The human delegation, unaware of the true nature of the situation, watches with concern as their ambassador departs with a high-ranking Klingon official. Sarah guides Robert through winding corridors to a secluded chamber. As the door slides shut behind them, she turns to face him, her eyes glinting with anticipation. "Now, Ambassador," she says, her voice husky, "let me show you how we honor such a fortuitous encounter in Klingon culture." Robert steels himself, realizing that this unexpected liaison could have far-reaching consequences for human-Klingon relations. As Sarah begins to explain the intricacies of the symbiote's significance, he can't help but wonder how this bizarre turn of events will reshape the future of interstellar diplomacy. As the door slides shut, Robert finds himself in a dimly lit chamber, adorned with an array of Klingon weapons and artifacts. His eyes are drawn to a massive bed dominating the center of the room, its frame crafted from what appears to be polished bone. Sarah's voice cuts through the silence. "This is a sacred space, Ambassador. Few outsiders have ever set foot here." Robert nods, his throat dry. "I'm honored, but I still don't understand." "The symbiote you carry," Sarah interrupts, her eyes gleaming in the low light, is known as a Ponfar enhancer. It's highly prized among our people. As Sarah begins to explain, Robert feels the creature shift against his skin. He listens intently, his diplomatic training kicking in despite the bizarre situation. This symbiote, Sarah continues, her voice taking on a reverent tone, intensifies physical sensations and strengthens emotional bonds between partners. Its presence on a human, it's unprecedented. Robert's eyebrows shoot up. And what does that mean for me? For us? Sarah steps closer, her breath hot on his neck. It means, Ambassador, that we have a unique opportunity. Engaging in intimate activities while hosting the symbiote could lead to unprecedented insights into Klingon physiology. It could strengthen the ties between our peoples in ways never before imagined. Robert's mind races, weighing the potential diplomatic benefits against his personal reservations. The symbiote pulses against his skin, sending waves of warmth through his body. He finds his dedication weakening, curiosity and a growing attraction to Sarah overriding his hesitation. I understand, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. What do we do? Sarah's lips curl into a predatory smile. She begins to remove her ornate armor, piece by piece. We honor the symbiote, Ambassador. We allow it to fulfill its purpose. With trembling hands, Robert begins to undress. As his shirt falls away, he notices a change in the symbiote. It begins to secrete a bioluminescent fluid, covering his skin in a soft blue glow. Sarah's eyes widen at the sight. Kahless be praised, she breathes. The fluid. It's a powerful aphrodisiac for Klingons, and for humans it enhances sensory perception. As they come together, Robert is overwhelmed by a flood of sensations. Every touch, every breath feels magnified 100-fold. He gasps as Sarah's hands explore his body, the symbiote responding to their shared arousal. Their coupling is intense, primal. Robert finds himself lost in a haze of pleasure and alien sensations. At times, he feels the symbiote move between them, attaching itself to Sarah before returning to him. This shared experience creates a bond unlike anything he's ever known. In the midst of their passion, Robert becomes aware of a change. The symbiote's bioluminescence intensifies, its form shifting and pulsating with energy. Alarmed, he pulls away from Sarah. What's happening? He asks, his voice tight with concern. Sarah's eyes are wide with wonder and a hint of fear. I don't know, this is unprecedented. They watch in fascination and trepidation as the symbiote detaches from them both. It hovers in the air between them, its form rapidly expanding. Within moments, it has encased itself in a cocoon-like structure. The cocoon pulses with energy, growing brighter by the second. Robert shields his eyes as a blinding flash fills the room. When he lowers his arm, he finds himself face to face with a creature straight out of legend. Where the symbiote had been, there now hovers a small winged serpent. Its scales shimmer with iridescent colors, and multiple eyes regard them with unmistakable intelligence. Sarah gasps, falling to her knees. It can't be, she whispers, a Kahless messenger. They're said to appear only in times of great importance for our people. Before Robert can respond, the door to the chamber bursts open. Klingon guards flood in, weapons at the ready. Their eyes lock onto the hovering creature, and as one, they drop to their knees in reverence. Robert and Sarah scramble to cover themselves as more Klingons pour into the room. The air is filled with guttural exclamations of awe and disbelief. In the chaos, Robert catches Sarah's eye. She looks as stunned as he feels, but there's a glimmer of something else in her gaze. Excitement, perhaps even hope. As word of the Kahless messenger's appearance spreads through the complex, Robert realizes that his simple diplomatic mission has just become infinitely more complicated. The symbiote's transformation has catapulted him into the center of a potentially universe-altering event. A gruff voice cuts through the commotion. Ambassador Henderson, you will come with us immediately. Robert nods, his mind blown as he tries to process the implications of what has just occurred. As he's led from the chamber, he casts one last glance at Sarah in the hovering Kahless messenger. Whatever happens next, he knows that the future of human-Klingon relations has just been irrevocably altered. And he, Robert Henderson, accidental host to a legendary symbiote, finds himself at the very heart of this unfolding cosmic drama. As Robert is led from the chamber, the Kahless messenger suddenly darts through the air, following closely behind. The creature's iridescent scales shimmer in the harsh light of the corridor, casting otherworldly patterns on the walls. The Klingon guards escorting Robert tense visibly, their hands tightening on their weapons as they eye the winged serpent with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Before they can proceed further, a commotion erupts from the far end of the hallway. A group of high-ranking Klingon officials, led by a towering figure with a scarred face and piercing eyes, storms towards them. Robert recognizes the leader as Chancellor Mokta, the supreme authority of the Klingon Empire. "What is the meaning of this?" Mokta's voice booms, echoing off the metallic walls. His gaze sweeps from Robert's disheveled appearance to the hovering Kahless messenger, his expression darkening with each passing second. Robert opens his mouth to speak, but Sarah, who has managed to throw on a robe, steps forward. "Chancellor," she says, her voice steady despite the tension in the air, "we have witnessed something extraordinary. The human ambassador—" "Silence," Mokta roars, his eyes narrowing as he takes in Sarah's state of undress. "You dare to engage in such activities with an alien during a diplomatic summit?" Robert, acutely aware of his own partial nudity and the lingering glow of the symbiote's fluid on his skin, straightens his posture. Years of diplomatic training kick in as he prepares to address the furious Klingon leader. "Chancellor Mokta," he begins, his voice clear and respectful, "I assure you, this is not what it appears. A most unexpected event has occurred, one that I believe holds great significance for both our peoples." Mokta's hand moves to the handle of his dak tag, the traditional Klingon knife. "Explain yourself, human, before I lose my patience." As Robert recounts the encounter with the symbiote and its subsequent transformation, the Kahless messenger circles above, its presence lending weight to his words. Sarah interjects occasionally, providing context from Klingon mythology that seems to soften Mokta's rigid posture. The Chancellor's personal guard, a battle-scarred warrior named Kava, steps forward at Mokta's gesture. "Secure the creature," Mokta orders, his voice low and threatening. As Kava approaches, his hand outstretched toward the Kahless messenger, the creature emits a piercing screech. The sound, high-pitched and grating, brings every Klingon in the vicinity to their knees, clutching their ears in agony. Robert, to his astonishment, remains unaffected. In the sudden silence that follows, Robert finds himself reaching out instinctively toward the messenger. The creature descends gracefully, alighting on his outstretched arm. As their eyes meet, Robert's two locking with the messenger's multitude, a jolt of energy courses through him. The world around Robert fades away as his mind is flooded with a torrent of images and sensations. He sees vast, unexplored star systems, ancient Klingon warriors locked in epic battles, and glimpses of a future where humans and Klingons stand united against a shadowy, all-consuming threat. As quickly as it began, the vision ends. Robert staggers, his knees buckling under the weight of the experience. He's vaguely aware of Sarah catching him before he hits the floor, her strong arms supporting his weight. The Klingons begin to recover, with Chancellor Mokta the first to regain his composure. His eyes, once filled with fury, now regard Robert with a mix of suspicion and grudging respect. "What did you see, human?" Mokta demands, his voice hoarse. Before Robert can answer, the sound of running footsteps echoes down the corridor. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, flanked by several members of the human diplomatic team, rounds the corner. Her eyes widen as she takes in the scene before her. "What in God's name is going on here?" she exclaims, her gaze darting between Robert's semi-naked form, the gathered Klingon officials, and the otherworldly creature now perched on a nearby console. Chancellor Mokta straightens to his full, imposing height. "Ambassador Rodriguez," he growls, "your subordinate has stumbled upon something of great importance to the Klingon Empire. We require his presence immediately." Elena's diplomatic mask slips for a moment, revealing her concern for Robert. I must insist on an explanation, Chancellor. The safety and well-being of my team is my primary concern. Mokta's laugh is harsh and abrupt. Safety? Your Ambassador Henderson stands at the precipice of greatness. Kales himself has chosen him as an intermediary between our peoples. The corridor falls silent as the weight of Mokta's words sinks in. Robert, still leaning heavily on Sarah, feels the eyes of both delegations upon him. The Kales messenger takes flight once more, circling the gathered diplomats before coming to rest on Robert's shoulder. Chancellor, Robert says, his voice stronger now, I believe I have information that both our governments need to hear. Perhaps we could convene somewhere more appropriate? Mokta nods, a glimmer of approval in his eyes. The High Council chamber. It shall be done. He turns to his guards, barking orders in rapid-fire Klingon. As the two delegations are ushered towards the High Council chamber, Robert catches Elena's eye. Her expression is a mix of confusion, worry, and a hint of exasperation that seems to say, "What have you gotten us into this time?" Robert takes a deep breath, the weight of the Kales messenger on his shoulder, a constant reminder of the extraordinary turn of events. As they approach the ornate doors of the High Council chamber, he steels himself for what lies ahead. The fate of human-Klingon relations, and perhaps the galaxy itself, now rests in his hands. The massive doors swing open, revealing a cavernous room filled with the most powerful Klingons in the Empire. The air is thick with tension and the murmur of hushed conversations. As Robert steps forward, the Kales messenger still perched on his shoulder, all eyes turn to him. The chamber falls silent, and Robert knows that whatever he says next will shape the course of galactic history. History. As Robert takes a deep breath, preparing to address the assembly, an unexpected phenomenon occurs. The Kales messenger on his shoulder begins to pulsate with an intense, otherworldly light. The luminescence spreads rapidly, enveloping Robert in a translucent, shimmering cocoon. Gasps and murmurs ripple through the chamber as both human and Klingon delegates witness this extraordinary sight. Chancellor Mokta's eyes narrow, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. "What trickery is this?" he growls, his voice a mix of suspicion and awe. Robert, equally stunned, raises his hands in a placating gesture. "Chancellor, I assure you, I have no control over this." Mokta turns to his personal guard, Kavag. "Investigate this barrier," he orders, his voice tight with tension. Kavag approaches cautiously, his muscular frame taut with anticipation. He reaches out, expecting resistance, but his hand passes through the luminescent field without impediment. The Klingon warrior's eyes widen in surprise. "It is not a physical barrier, Chancellor," Kavag reports, his gruff voice tinged with confusion. "It appears to be purely visual." This revelation sends a new wave of murmurs through the assembled dignitaries. Some Klingons begin to whisper about divine intervention, while others argue in hushed tones about potential human technological deception. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez steps forward, her diplomatic mask firmly in place despite the evident concern in her eyes. "Robert, are you all right?" she asks, her voice steady but tinged with underlying worry. Before Robert can respond, he feels a surge of energy coursing through him. The Kales messenger's presence becomes more pronounced, and suddenly his mind is flooded with vivid images. The vision he experienced earlier now amplified and clarified. "Idura, I can see it clearly now," Robert says, his voice resonating with newfound strength. "The future, our future." As he begins to speak, the luminescent field around him flares brightly. To the astonishment of all present, holographic-like images begin to materialize in the air, projecting scenes from Robert's vision for all to witness. The chamber falls into a hushed silence as the images unfold. Vast fleets of human and Klingon ships, their designs a seamless blend of both civilizations' technologies, engage in fierce battles against an unknown enemy. The projections shift, showing scenes of cultural exchange, humans practicing bat'leth techniques under Klingon instruction, Klingon scientists collaborating with human researchers in advanced laboratories. "Our peoples united," Robert narrates, his voice filled with conviction. fighting side by side against a threat that would destroy us all. As the visions continue to play out, a new figure emerges, a female Klingon, her bearing proud and intelligent, working alongside human scientists on what appears to be a revolutionary weapon system. Suddenly, a commotion erupts from the Klingon side of the chamber. A Klingon woman pushes her way to the front, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. That's me, she exclaims, her voice a mix of awe and indignation. How is this possible? My research is classified at the highest levels. Chancellor Mokta's head snaps towards her. Kalara of the Science Council, he growls, his voice low and dangerous. Explain yourself. Kalara straightens, meeting the Chancellor's gaze unflinchingly. Chancellor, I have been working on advanced defensive systems. But this goes beyond anything we've achieved. The level of integration with human technology is unprecedented. Mokta turns his piercing gaze back to Robert. Human, how did you come by this knowledge? Speak carefully, for your answer may determine the fate of your entire species. Robert, still enveloped in the luminescent field, takes a moment to gather his thoughts. Chancellor, I can only attribute this knowledge to the Kalas messenger. These visions, they feel like memories of a future yet to come, a future where our peoples stand together against a common enemy. As Robert continues to elaborate on the vision, describing the advancements and alliances he's witnessed, the Kalas messenger suddenly takes flight. It circles the chamber once, its iridescent scales catching the light, before coming to rest on Kalara's shoulder. The chamber erupts into chaos as the creature's bioluminescent glow extends to encompass Kalara, creating a visual link between her and Robert. Kalara stiffens, her eyes glazing over as she's thrust into the same telepathic experience Robert has been experiencing. I see it, Kalara gasps, her voice synchronizing with Robert's. The enemy. They're not like us. Silicon-based life forms seeking to eradicate all carbon-based life in the galaxy. As Robert and Kalara continue their synchronized revelation, the holographic projections intensify, showing glimpses of the silicon-based threat, crystalline structures that move with terrifying purpose, decimating entire worlds. The assembled delegates watch in stunned silence as the gravity of the situation becomes clear. This is no longer just about human-Klingon relations. It's about the survival of their entire way of life. As the vision reaches its climax, the Kalas messenger's glow intensifies to an almost blinding level. In a flash of light that forces everyone to shield their eyes, the creature splits into two identical beings, one remaining with Robert, the other with Kalara. The luminescent fields surrounding Robert and Kalara gradually fade, leaving them both visibly drained but alert. The two Kalas messengers perch on their shoulders, silent sentinels to the extraordinary events that have just unfolded. Chancellor Mokta, his face a mask of terrifying emotion, steps forward. Kalas himself has spoken, he declares, his voice resonating through the chamber. The path forward is clear. We must unite against this common threat. He turns to Ambassador Rodriguez, who stands wide-eyed at the unprecedented turn of events. Ambassador, I propose an immediate summit to discuss the formation of an alliance between our peoples. Rodriguez, ever the diplomat, nods cautiously. Chancellor, while we are open to discussions, we must insist on further verification of these visions. I propose that both Robert and Kalara undergo thorough examinations to ensure the authenticity of their experiences. Mokta nods, a glimmer of respect in his eyes at the human's prudence. Agreed. We shall convene a panel of our finest scientists and yours. As the chamber buzzes with a mixture of excitement and apprehension, Robert and Kalara exchange a look of understanding. The weight of their shared experience and the potential future it represents hangs heavily between them. Mokta's voice cuts through the din. Clear the chamber. Only high-ranking officials are to remain. Ambassador Henderson and Kalara will be moved to a secure location for further questioning. As the chamber begins to empty, Robert feels a hand on his arm. He turns to see Sarah, her eyes filled with a mixture of concern and pride. Whatever happens next, she says softly, know that you have brought our peoples closer than ever before. Robert nods. the Kahless messenger shifting slightly on his shoulder. As he's led away, he can't help but wonder what further revelations await in the secure confines of the diplomatic complex. The fate of two great civilizations, and perhaps the entire galaxy, now rests on the insights granted by these enigmatic creatures and the unlikely alliance they've forged. As Robert is led away, his mind races with the implications of what has just transpired. The journey to the secure location is a blur of activity. Klingon warriors flank Robert and Kalara, their eyes darting suspiciously between the two, and the Kahless messengers perched on their shoulders. Human security personnel trail behind, their hands hovering near their weapons. Upon entering the specially prepared suite, Robert's senses are immediately overwhelmed. The room is a stark contrast to the brutalist architecture of the rest of the complex, its walls adorned with a blend of human and Klingon design elements. The air is thick with the scent of unfamiliar Klingon incense, mingling with the sterile smell of medical equipment. "This way," a gruff Klingon voice commands, guiding Robert and Kalara to separate examination tables. The medical team springs into action, a mix of human doctors in crisp white coats and Klingon healers in traditional garb. Robert winces as a cold sensor is pressed against his temple, while across the room Kalara growls in discomfort as a human doctor draws a blood sample. "Fascinating," a human doctor murmurs, eyes fixed on a holographic display of Robert's brain activity. "The neural patterns are unlike anything I've ever seen." A Klingon healer nods in agreement, his ridged forehead furrowed in concentration. The same is true for Kalara. It's as if their minds have been rewired. As the examination continues, the door to the suite slides open with a soft hiss. A tall woman with short silver hair and piercing green eyes strides in, her presence immediately commanding attention. "Dr. Alara Voss," she introduces herself, her voice crisp and authoritative. "I'm here to examine the Kahless messengers." Robert watches as Dr. Voss approaches his Kahless messenger, her hand outstretched. The creature regards her curiously, its iridescent scales shimmering under the harsh lights. Suddenly, the Kahless messenger emits a high-pitched screech. The sound pierces through Robert's skull, causing him to cry out in pain. Across the room, Kalara clutches her head, her face contorted in agony. The room erupts into chaos as every electronic device malfunctions simultaneously. Holographic displays flicker and die, medical equipment sparks and smokes, and the overhead lights flicker ominously. In the midst of the pandemonium, Robert's vision blurs. The sterile walls of the examination room fade away, replaced by the vast emptiness of space. A massive structure looms before him, a breathtaking fusion of human and Klingon engineering. Sleek human design elements blend seamlessly with the aggressive, angular shapes favored by Klingons. "The station," Kalara's voice echoes in his mind. "Do you see it?" Robert nods, though he knows she can't see him. "Yes," he replies mentally. "It's, incredible." As quickly as it appeared, the vision fades. Robert finds himself back in the examination room, his eyes locked with Kalara's across the space. An understanding passes between them, born of their shared experience. The Kahless messengers, sensing the connection, begin to glow more intensely. Their light grows brighter and brighter until Robert has to shield his eyes. When he lowers his hand, he gasps in shock. Where there were once two creatures, there is now only one. It hovers between Robert and Kalara, its form larger and more radiant than before. Tendrils of bioluminescent energy reach out, enveloping both of them in a cocoon of light. Robert feels a tugging sensation in his mind, as if invisible hands are reaching into his consciousness. Memories that are not his own flood his senses. He sees a young Kalara, fierce and determined, proving herself in the rigorous trials of the Klingon Science Academy. He feels her frustration at the limitations of Klingon technology, her burning desire to push beyond what is known. At the same time, Kalara experiences flashes of Robert's life. She witnesses his childhood fascination with space, his years of dedicated study, and the mix of excitement and trepidation he felt upon being chosen for this diplomatic mission. Hours pass, though to Robert and Kalara, it feels like both an eternity and a mere instant. As the cocoon of energy begins to dissipate, they emerge changed. Robert runs a hand over his forehead, feeling the subtle ridges that now adorn his brow. Across from him, Clara examines her arms, marveling at the smoothness of her now human-like skin. The room falls silent as everyone takes in the transformation. Dr. Voss is the first to approach, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. Extraordinary, she breathes, her eyes darting between Robert and Clara. Before anyone can react further, the door bursts open. Chancellor Mokta storms in, his eyes widening at the sight before him. "By Kales," he growls, his voice a mix of awe and apprehension. "What have you become?" Robert and Clara exchange a glance, their newfound connection allowing them to communicate without words. They turn to face the Chancellor, standing side by side, the merged Kales messenger hovering between them. "Chancellor," Robert begins, his voice steady despite the turmoil of emotions within him, "we have seen the future, and it is one where humans and Klingons stand united." Clara nods, her voice blending seamlessly with Robert's. "We are the bridge between our peoples, Chancellor, the key to our survival against the coming storm." Mokta's eyes narrow as he considers their words. After a long moment, he nods decisively. "Summon the High Council," he barks to a nearby aide, "and contact the human delegation. It is time we forged a new path, together." As the room erupts into frenzied activity, Robert and Clara remain still, their hands unconsciously intertwined. The Kales messenger settles on their joined hands, its glow pulsing gently. The future stretches before them, full of uncertainty and promise. But for now, in this moment, they stand as living proof of what their peoples could become. The first of a new breed, born of two worlds united in purpose. The journey ahead would be challenging, filled with obstacles both known and unforeseen. But as Robert looks into Clara's eyes, he knows that together they are ready to face whatever comes next. As Robert and Clara stood united before Chancellor Mokta, the atmosphere in the room crackled with tension. The implications of their transformation hung heavy in the air, a silent challenge to centuries of ingrained beliefs and prejudices. Chancellor Mokta's eyes narrowed as he studied the pair, his gaze lingering on Robert's newly formed forehead ridges and Clara's smooth skin. "This development requires further discussion," he growled, his voice a low rumble. "Summon the High Council and the human delegation immediately." As the room erupted into frenzied activity, Robert felt a gentle pressure on his mind. He turned to Clara, their eyes meeting in silent communication. The depth of their connection was both exhilarating and terrifying. "We should prepare ourselves," Clara's voice echoed in his thoughts. "This will not be an easy path." Robert nodded imperceptibly, squeezing her hand. The merged Kales messenger pulsed between them, its light a comforting presence. Within minutes, they were ushered into a secure observation chamber adjacent to the main conference room. Through the one-way glass, they could see the delegates filing in, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. As the discussions began, their voices muffled by the thick glass, Robert and Clara found themselves under the scrutiny of a new arrival. Dr. Zara Vex, a statuesque woman with piercing blue eyes and flowing dark hair, approached them with a mix of scientific curiosity and barely concealed excitement. "Fascinating," Dr. Vex murmured, her eyes darting between Robert and Clara. "I've never seen anything like this. May I?" She held up a handheld scanner, waiting for their permission. As Dr. Vex began her examination, Robert felt a strange tingling sensation coursing through his body. He glanced at Clara, noting the flush creeping up her neck. Their proximity was triggering unexpected physiological responses, heightening their awareness of each other. Dr. Vex's eyes widened as she studied her readings. "This is incredible. Your DNA has been fundamentally altered, creating a perfect blend of human and Klingon genetic structures. The implications are staggering." As she continued her analysis, Robert became acutely aware of Clara's presence. Her scent, an intoxicating mix of something distinctly Klingon and undeniably human, filled his senses. He could feel her pulse quickening, matching the rapid beating of his own heart. The Kales messenger, sensing their growing connection, expanded its bioluminescent field to encompass them both. Within this cocoon of light, Robert's world narrowed to Clara. Her thoughts, her emotions, her very essence seemed to flow into him, and he into her. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, their newly hybridized bodies responding with an intensity that took them both by surprise. The genetic changes had heightened their sensitivities, making every touch, every caress, a revelation. Unbeknownst to the entwined couple, their intimate moment was being closely monitored. In the adjacent room, human and Klingon scientists watched in stunned silence as their instruments recorded data that would reshape their understanding of interspecies relations. As Robert and Kalara's passion reached its peak, the Kahless messenger's light pulsed brightly, momentarily blinding the observers. When the light faded, Robert and Kalara lay in each other's arms, their bodies glistening with a faint bioluminescent sheen. Dr. Vex, her face flushed with excitement, burst into the chamber. "You won't believe what we've just discovered," she exclaimed, her eyes bright with the thrill of scientific breakthrough. "The data collected during your encounter, it suggests that human Klingon reproduction might be possible. This changes everything." As the news spread through the complex, it caught the attention of a shadowy figure lurking in the maintenance tunnels. Marcus Thorne, agent of the Galactic Gene Front, curled his lip in disgust. The abomination he had come to destroy was proving to be more dangerous than anticipated. He pulled a small vial from his pocket, studying the swirling, iridescent liquid within. The genetically targeted virus had cost the GGF dearly, but it would be worth it to eliminate this threat to genetic purity. As Marcus began to make his way towards the observation chamber, Robert and Kalara suddenly tensed. Their heightened senses, a gift of their transformation, alerted them to the approaching danger. The Kahless messenger, reacting to their alarm, suddenly divided into dozens of smaller entities. These luminous creatures spread throughout the complex, their soft glow a warning to all who saw them. Alarms blared as Chancellor Mokta's voice boomed over the intercom, ordering an immediate lockdown. Security teams scrambled, their heavy boots echoing through the corridors as they searched for the intruder. In the chaos, Robert and Kalara were quickly ushered to a more secure location deep within the complex. As the blast doors sealed behind them, they exchanged a look of persistence. Whatever this new threat was, they would face it together. The Kahless messengers, now a network of sentinels throughout the facility, pulsed with an urgent light. Somewhere in the labyrinthine corridors of the diplomatic complex, Marcus Thorne was closing in, his deadly payload clutched tightly in his hand. As Robert and Kalara prepared to face this unseen enemy, they could feel their newfound abilities stirring within them. The true test of their transformation was about to begin, with the future of human-Klingon relations hanging in the balance. As Robert and Kalara prepared to face the unseen enemy, alarms blared throughout the complex. Security personnel rushed past them, their boots thundering against the polished floors. "This way," barked a gruff Klingon guard, gesturing towards a heavily reinforced door at the end of the corridor. "We're moving you to a secure location." Robert and Kalara exchanged a glance, their newfound connection allowing them to communicate without words. They followed the guard, their hands still intertwined. As they moved, Robert noticed his hearing sharpening. He could pick up fragments of conversations from rooms away, snippets of panicked orders and status reports. The guard pressed his palm against a biometric scanner, and the reinforced door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Inside, they found themselves in a fortified safe room, its walls gleaming with a metallic sheen that spoke of advanced protective technology. Dr. Zara Vex rushed in behind them, her arms full of scientific equipment. "I'm coming with you," she announced, her eyes bright with a mix of excitement and concern. "My expertise might be crucial in understanding what's happening to you both." As the door sealed shut behind them, Robert felt a wave of claustrophobia wash over him. The room, designed to withstand even the most powerful Klingon weapons, suddenly felt oppressively small. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. Kalara squeezed his hand, sensing his discomfort. "It's okay," she murmured, her voice soothing in his mind. "We're safer here." Dr. Vex wasted no time in setting up her equipment. I need to run some tests, she said, her voice filled with almost unchecked excitement. The changes you're both experiencing, they're unprecedented. As Dr. Vex began her examination, Robert became acutely aware of his body's changes. His senses seemed to be operating in overdrive. He could hear the hum of the room's ventilation system, the subtle shifts in Dr. Vex's breathing as she worked. When he looked at Clara, he could see the minute details of her skin, the subtle play of muscles beneath the surface. Clara, too, was experiencing her own changes. She flexed her hands, marveling at the surge of strength she felt coursing through her muscles. I feel different, she said, her voice a mix of wonder and apprehension. Dr. Vex nodded eagerly, her eyes fixed on the readouts from her scanners. Your DNA is continuing to evolve, she explained. It's adapting to your environment in real time. I've never seen anything like it. As the doctor continued her tests, Robert felt a strange tingling sensation at the base of his skull. He turned to Clara, only to find her staring back at him with wide eyes. Without speaking, he knew she was experiencing the same thing. I can feel you, Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper. Your thoughts, your emotions. Dr. Vex's head snapped up, her eyes widening. Telepathic communication? She breathed. Fascinating. Outside the safe room, chaos reigned. Chancellor Mokta's voice boomed over the intercom, ordering a complete lockdown of the facility. The network of Kalos messengers, now spread throughout the complex, pulsed with an urgent light, their bioluminescent glow a warning to all who saw them. In the maintenance tunnels, Marcus Thorne moved with practiced stealth. His advanced technology masked his heat signature and disrupted surveillance systems, allowing him to evade the searching security teams. But the Kalos messengers posed an unexpected challenge, their ethereal presence forcing him to move more cautiously than he'd planned. Back in the safe room, Robert and Clara's connection continued to deepen. As Dr. Vex worked, they found themselves lost in each other's minds, exploring memories and emotions with an intimacy that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Suddenly, Robert tensed. Through their shared consciousness, he and Clara became aware of a new presence. The network of Kalos messengers had somehow linked with their minds, creating a three-way psychic connection that provided them with an almost real-time map of the complex. He's coming, Robert said, his voice tight with tension. The intruder. We can sense him through the messengers. Dr. Vex looked up from her instruments, her face a mask of concern. If he's carrying a genetically targeted virus, we need to prepare, she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. As they braced themselves for the coming confrontation, a new complication arose. Robert felt a wave of heat wash over him, his skin tingling with a strange energy. He looked at Clara and saw that she was experiencing the same thing. Dr. Vex's instruments began to beep urgently. Your bodies are releasing powerful pheromones, she explained, her voice strained. It seems to be a side effect of the hybridization process. The air in the safe room grew thick with the scent of the pheromones. Robert felt his heart rate increase, his body responding to Clara's presence in ways that were both familiar and entirely new. He could see the flush creeping up her neck, her pupils dilating as she looked at him. Dr. Vex struggled to maintain her composure, the pheromones affecting her as well. This could be an evolutionary mechanism, she managed to say, her voice husky, designed to promote further genetic mixing between humans and Klingons. As the pheromones seeped out of the safe room through the ventilation system, their effects began to spread throughout the complex. Security teams found their aggression dampened, replaced by a strange sense of empathy and connection. Through their link with the Kalos messengers, Robert and Clara could sense the change in the atmosphere. They could also feel Marcus Thorne's growing frustration as the pheromones began to affect him, slowing his progress. He's almost here, Clara said, her voice tight with anticipation. She flexed her hands, feeling the surge of her new Klingon strength. Robert nodded, his heightened senses on full alert. He could hear Thorne's approaching footsteps, quiet as they were. Get ready, he said to Dr. Vex. Whatever happens next, it's going to change everything. As they waited, tense and alert, for Thorne to reach the safe room, Robert and Clara stood side by side. Their bodies, irrevocably changed by the hybridization process, hummed with newfound power and connection. The Kalos messenger network pulsed around them, a silent sentinel against the coming threat. Outside the door, they heard the soft hiss of a sealed container being opened. Marcus Thorne, his mission nearing its climax, prepared to deploy his deadly payload. The future of human-Klingon relations hung in the balance as the door to the safe room began to open. Open with a hiss. Robert and Kalara tensed, ready to face the threat. Suddenly, a brilliant surge of energy erupted from the Kalos messenger network. The small, luminous entities swarming throughout the complex converged at lightning speed, coalescing into a larger, pulsating form directly between Thorne and the safe room entrance. The air crackled with electricity as a shimmering force field materialized, momentarily halting Thorne's advance. Robert felt a tingling sensation spread across his skin. He glanced at Kalara and saw her experiencing the same phenomenon. Their hybrid physiology, spurred by the imminent danger, underwent a rapid adaptation. A protective layer formed over their skin, hardening into a tough, translucent sheen. Dr. Vex's eyes widened in fascination. "Incredible," she breathed, quickly retrieving a sample collection kit from her equipment. "Your bodies are developing a biological defense mechanism against external threats." Outside, Marcus Thorne recovered from his initial shock. He pulled out a sleek, high-tech device and began tapping furiously, attempting to breach the force field. The Kalos messenger's energy wavered under the assault, its light flickering erratically. Inside the safe room, Robert and Kalara experienced a surge of power coursing through their bodies. Their muscles tensed and relaxed, strength building with each passing second. Robert flexed his hand, marveling at the new sensations. "I feel different," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "Stronger, faster." Kalara nodded, her eyes gleaming with a fierce intensity. "Our bodies are preparing for battle," she growled, her Klingon heritage shining through. The air grew thick with pheromones, their scent intensifying and spreading through the ventilation system. Dr. Vex struggled to maintain her focus, her cheeks flushing as she continued her analysis. Through their telepathic link, Robert and Kalara sensed a shift in the complex's atmosphere. Chancellor Mokta's voice echoed in their minds, his tone uncharacteristically calm. "Stand down," the Chancellor ordered his warriors. "We must explore diplomatic options." Robert and Kalara exchanged a glance, recognizing the influence of their pheromones. The confusion among the security forces was palpable, creating an opening for Thorne to exploit. As Thorne's hacking intensified, the force field began to flicker and fade. Robert and Kalara's newfound precognitive abilities kicked in, allowing them to anticipate Thorne's next moves. They positioned themselves strategically, ready to counter his attack. Dr. Vex, still analyzing their genetic samples, let out a gasp. "Your hybrid DNA," she exclaimed. "It's not just resistant to Thorne's virus, it can neutralize it." Her fingers flew over her equipment as she quickly synthesized a counteragent. The Kalos messenger, its energy depleted, retreated into the safe room. It hovered for a moment before merging with Robert and Kalara. A flood of ancient Klingon knowledge and combat techniques filled their minds, seamlessly integrating with their human intuition and the messenger's cosmic wisdom. The safe room's outer door groaned, then burst open. Thorne stepped through, his face a mask of commitment. He froze at the sight before him. Robert and Kalara stood side by side, their bodies glowing with intricate bioluminescent patterns. They moved with inhuman speed and grace, closing the distance between them and Thorne in the blink of an eye. The fight exploded into the corridor. Robert ducked under Thorne's first swing, countering with a lightning-fast jab to the solar plexus. Kalara followed up with a spinning kick that sent Thorne stumbling backward. Thorne recovered quickly, his advanced combat training evident in his fluid movements. He pulled out a wicked-looking blade, its edge gleaming in the harsh overhead lights. Robert and Kalara weaved and dodged, their precognitive abilities allowing them to stay one step ahead. As the battle raged, Dr. Vex seized her opportunity. She activated the complex emergency ventilation system, releasing the synthesized counteragent into the air. The neutralizing compound spread rapidly, rendering Thorne's virus inert before he could deploy it. The prolonged exposure to Robert and Kalara's pheromones began to take its toll on Thorn. His movements became less coordinated, his attacks less focused. Moments of confusion flickered across his face, his eyes darting between his opponents with growing uncertainty. Robert and Kalara pressed their advantage. Their bodies moved in perfect harmony, executing a dazzling array of human and Klingon combat techniques. Robert delivered a series of rapid strikes to Thorn's midsection, while Kalara followed up with a powerful Klingon grappling move. As the fight reached its peak, Robert and Kalara felt another change ripple through their bodies. Their cellular structure shifted, becoming more fluid and adaptable. Robert instinctively reached out, his hand passing partially through a nearby wall. Thorn's eyes widened in disbelief. He lashed out with his blade, but it passed harmlessly through Robert's semi-phased arm. Kalara seized the opening, her hand solidifying just in time to deliver a crushing blow to Thorn's wrist. The blade clattered to the floor. With a final coordinated assault, Robert and Kalara subdued Thorn. They stood over him, their bodies still glowing with the Kalas messenger's light, as the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor. Chancellor Mokta rounded the corner, flanked by human delegation leaders and a mix of Klingon and human security forces. They stopped short, taking in the scene before them with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Robert and Kalara turned to face the new arrivals, their presence radiating an aura of power and unity. The gathered leaders, both human and Klingon, felt the last of their hostilities melting away, replaced by a growing sense of cooperation and shared purpose. As the implications of what had transpired began to sink in, Robert and Kalara exchanged a look of understanding. This was only the beginning of a new chapter in human-Klingon relations, one that would reshape the very fabric of galactic society. The corridor fell silent, the only sound the soft hum of Robert and Kalara's bioluminescent glow. In that moment of calm, the weight of what had been set in motion hung heavy in the air, promising a future that none could have predicted. As the tension in the corridor slowly dissipated, Robert and Kalara's bioluminescent glow intensified, bathing the area in an ethereal light. The subdued Thorn, still visibly affected by the hybrid pheromones, offered no resistance as a mixed team of human and Klingon security personnel took him into custody. Chancellor Mokta, his imposing figure softened by the influence of the pervasive pheromones, stepped forward. At his side walked Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, her usual stern demeanor replaced by an uncharacteristic look of wonder. The leaders approached Robert and Kalara, their eyes fixed on the hybrid couple's shimmering forms. "We require a full debriefing," Chancellor Mokta said, his gruff voice tinged with curiosity. "Your new abilities, they could change everything." Ambassador Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "We need to understand the full extent of what's happened here." Before Robert or Kalara could respond, Dr. Zara Vex emerged from the safe room, her face flushed and her eyes bright with excitement. She clutched a datapad in her hands, her fingers flying over its surface as she approached the group. "Chancellor Ambassador," she said, her voice breathless, "I have the latest analysis results. The hybridization process has stabilized in Robert and Kalara, but..." She paused, her expression growing serious. "Prolonged exposure to their pheromones could potentially trigger genetic changes in others." Chancellor Mokta's eyes widened. He turned to his aides, his voice booming through the corridor. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel from the complex immediately." As the evacuation order spread, a new figure arrived on the scene. Dr. Krell, a grizzled Klingon geneticist with prominent cybernetic augmentations, strode purposefully toward the group. His arrival drew curious glances from both humans and Klingons alike. "Chancellor," Dr. Krell growled, inclining his head respectfully, "I came as soon as I received your summons." As the complex buzzed with activity, Robert and Kalara felt a strange sensation. The Kalas messenger, which had merged with them during the battle, began to separate from their bodies. It coalesced into a swirling vortex of bioluminescent particles, hovering between them and the assembled leaders. The vortex expanded, forming a three-dimensional holographic display. Star maps flickered into existence, highlighting an unexplored region of space at the edge of Klingon and Federation territories. The assembled group watched in awe as the display zoomed in on a particular sector, pulsing with an unknown energy signature. Chancellor Mokta's eyes narrowed as he studied the star map. "Launch a deep space probe to that region immediately," he ordered, his voice filled with urgency. Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward, her diplomatic instincts kicking in. "Chancellor, if I may, we have an advanced Earth vessel equipped with experimental long-range sensors. Perhaps a joint mission would be in order?" As the leaders discussed the implications of the star map, Robert and Calera exchanged a heated glance. Their bodies hummed with newfound energy, and an overwhelming urge began to build within them. The intensity of their pheromones increased dramatically, causing those nearby to shift uncomfortably. Dr. Vex and Dr. Krell, who had been conferring quietly, suddenly looked up. Their faces flushed, and their breathing quickened as the potent biochemical influence washed over them. Chancellor Mokta, noticing the change in atmosphere, made a swift decision. "Prepare the negotiation chamber," he commanded. "It will serve as a containment area for Robert and Calera while we study their condition." As security personnel moved to escort the hybrid couple to the chamber, Robert reached out to steady himself against the wall. To everyone's surprise, his hand seemed to pass through the solid surface, his skin taking on the color and texture of the wall itself. Calera gasped, her own skin rippling with a chameleon-like effect. In a matter of seconds, both Robert and Calera had blended seamlessly into their surroundings, effectively disappearing from view. Panic erupted among the security team, but Dr. Krell's voice cut through the chaos. "Fascinating," he muttered, his cybernetic eye whirring as it scanned the area where Robert and Calera had stood. "The hybridization process seems to have unlocked dormant genetic potential in both species." As the security team used thermal imaging to locate and guide the now visible Robert and Calera to the specialized chamber, Dr. Krell turned to Chancellor Mokta and Ambassador Rodriguez. "We must collect genetic samples," he insisted, his voice low and intense. "Imagine the possibilities. A new generation of enhanced warriors, combining the best of both our species." The suggestion hung in the air, met with mixed expressions of intrigue and apprehension from both human and Klingon officials. Inside the chamber, Robert and Calera's control over their new abilities wavered. Their skin flickered between visibility and near-perfect camouflage as they gave in to their hybrid instincts. As their intimacy intensified, a surge of bioenergy emanated from their bodies, causing lights to flicker and systems to fluctuate throughout the complex. The Kalos messenger, still present as a swarm of bioluminescent particles, reacted to their union. It swirled around the chamber, forming a cocoon of shimmering light that obscured the interior from view. Outside, alarms blared as the deep space probe reached its destination. Scientists from both species huddled around monitors, their faces masks of shock and awe as the data streamed in. The unexplored region contained evidence of an ancient, highly advanced civilization, one that appeared to have successfully merged organic and synthetic life. As the implications of this discovery began to sink in, Chancellor Mokta and Ambassador Rodriguez exchanged a meaningful look. The hybrid situation unfolding in the diplomatic complex, combined with the revelation of this ancient civilization, had the potential to reshape the future of both their species. "We need a joint task force," Ambassador Rodriguez said, her voice firm with commitment. "Our best scientists, our finest warriors, working together to understand these phenomena and prepare for whatever comes next." Chancellor Mokta nodded, his expression grave. "Agreed. We must act quickly before word of these events spreads and causes panic." As they began to draft an emergency declaration, the cocoon of light surrounding Robert and Calera's chamber pulsed with increasing intensity. The hybrid couple's transformation continued, their bodies and minds evolving in ways that would challenge the very foundations of human and Klingon society. The Kalos messenger, now inextricably linked with Robert and Calera, seemed to whisper of futures yet unseen. As the diplomatic complex buzzed with activity and the joint task force began to take shape, one thing became clear: the dawn of a new era in human-Klingon relations had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The cocoon of light surrounding Robert and Calera's chamber pulsed one final time, before dissipating into a shower of bioluminescent particles. As the last remnants faded, the hybrid couple emerged, their transformation complete. Gasps echoed through the observation room as scientists and officials alike beheld the changes. Robert and Kalara's skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, shifting colors like oil on water. As they stepped forward, their skin reflected the sterile white of the chamber walls, then rippled with hues of blue and green that seemed to mirror their mix of curiosity and apprehension. Dr. Zara Vex rushed forward, her eyes wide with scientific fascination. "Extraordinary," she breathed, reaching out tentatively towards Kalara's arm. Her hand hovered inches away, sensors on her wrist computer rapidly collecting data. Kalara's voice rang out, clear and strong. "We can sense your thoughts, Doctor." Her eyes, now with a subtle glow, locked onto Zara's. "Your questions, we can hear them." Robert nodded, his gaze sweeping the room. "Not just Kalara's thoughts, all of yours, and—" He paused, his brow furrowing. "Something else. The messenger. It's still with us. Part of us." Chancellor Mokta stepped forward, his imposing figure drawing all eyes. "What does it tell you?" he demanded, his voice a low growl. Before Robert could respond, Kalara's body suddenly lifted off the ground. She hovered a foot in the air, her expression a mix of surprise and concentration. Robert's hand shot out instinctively, and a nearby datapad flew into his grasp. "Gravitational manipulation," Dr. Krell muttered, his cybernetic eye whirring as it recorded the phenomenon. "Fascinating." Alarms blared, cutting through the tense atmosphere. Ambassador Rodriguez strode to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the controls. "The Deep Space Probe," she announced, her voice tight. "It's transmitting its final data burst." The room erupted into a flurry of activity. Scientists huddled around monitors, analyzing the incoming data. Chancellor Mokta and Ambassador Rodriguez conferred in low, urgent tones. Amidst the chaos, Robert and Kalara stood still, their eyes closed in silent communication. Suddenly they spoke in unison, their voices overlapping in an eerie harmony. "The station orbits a dying star," they intoned, "a nexus of technology beyond our understanding, the key to our transformation and perhaps our future." Dr. Krell's eyes gleamed with a mix of scientific curiosity and ambition. "We must study this phenomenon further," he declared. "I propose an experiment. Controlled exposure to their pheromones could unlock similar abilities in volunteers." His suggestion sparked immediate debate. Human and Klingon officials argued back and forth, their voices rising in intensity. Ambassador Rodriguez raised her hand, silencing the room. "We need a unified approach," she stated firmly. "A joint task force to explore this anomaly and study the hybrid phenomenon." Chancellor Mokta nodded his agreement. "I will contact our governments immediately. This situation demands unprecedented cooperation." As preparations for the emergency meeting began, a new figure entered the complex. Captain Thora Vex strode in, her Earth Space Fleet uniform crisp and her posture rigid. Her eyes locked onto her sister, Dr. Zara Vex, and the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. "Captain Vex," Ambassador Rodriguez greeted her, "thank you for coming on such short notice. We'll need your expertise for this mission." Thora nodded curtly, her gaze sweeping the room before settling on Robert and Kalara. "I've been briefed on the situation," she said, her voice cool and professional. "But seeing it firsthand—" She trailed off, watching as Robert absent-mindedly levitated a stylus, twirling it in the air. Dr. Zara Vex approached her sister, datapad in hand. "Thora, I know we've had our differences, but this is bigger than us. We need to work together." Thora's expression softened slightly. "Agreed. What do you need from me?" As the Vex sisters began to collaborate, Robert and Kalara suddenly stiffened. Their eyes glowed brightly, and the air around them shimmered with an otherworldly energy. "The messenger," Kalara gasped. "It's showing us the future." The hybrid couple's skin rippled with a kaleidoscope of colors as they described their vision. Images of human-Klingon hybrids, serving as bridges between the two species, of technological marvels beyond imagination. But also darker possibilities, fear, conflict, the potential for their abilities to be weaponized. As the vision faded, Robert reached out, his hand brushing against a nearby console. To everyone's shock, the metal surface briefly liquefied, flowing like water before re-solidifying. Matter manipulation, Dr. Krell breathed, his cybernetic implants working overtime to record the event. Chancellor Mokta's communicator chirped. The emergency meeting is set, he announced. We must present our case for this joint expedition. As final preparations for the meeting and the upcoming mission kicked into high gear, Robert and Clara stood at the center of the storm. Their bodies hummed with newfound power, their minds linked not only to each other, but to the ancient consciousness of the Kahless messenger. Captain Thora Vex approached them, her expression a mixture of awe and persistence. We're going to that space station, she stated, her voice firm, and you two are the key to unlocking its secrets. Robert and Clara nodded in unison, their iridescent skin shimmering with anticipation. The journey ahead would test the limits of the fledgling human-Klingon alliance and push the boundaries of what both species thought possible. As the complex buzzed with activity, the Kahless messenger whispered through Robert and Clara's shared consciousness, hinting at the wonders and dangers that awaited them in the heart of the space anomaly. The stage was set for an expedition that would shape the destiny of two great civilizations and perhaps the entire galaxy. Galaxy. The implications were staggering, but there was no time to dwell on them. The immediate challenge of preparing for the expedition demanded their full attention. As the complex buzzed with activity, Dr. Zara Vex and Dr. Krell huddled over a workstation, their focus intense as they designed specialized containment suits for Robert and Clara. The hybrid couple's skin shimmered and shifted, blending seamlessly with the metallic surface of the nearby medical bay. The chameleon effect is intensifying, Dr. Vex muttered, her fingers flying over the holographic interface. We need to incorporate adaptive camouflage into the suit design to counteract it. Dr. Krell nodded, his cybernetic eye whirring as it analyzed the data streaming across the screen. Agreed, and we'll need to reinforce the molecular structure to withstand potential gravitational manipulation. Across the room, Captain Thora Vex oversaw the final preparations for departure. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency, loading equipment and supplies onto the Earth vessel Horizon. The ship's sleek lines were now broken by angular Klingon modules, a visual representation of the unprecedented cooperation between the two species. Captain, a young Klingon warrior approached, snapping to attention. Lieutenant Korg reporting for duty. Thora turned, eyeing the new arrival. Korg stood tall, his posture impeccable, but there was a glint in his eye that spoke of curiosity rather than the typical Klingon aggression. At ease, Lieutenant, Thora said. You'll be serving as our liaison with the Klingon contingent. I trust you've been briefed on the unique nature of our mission? Korg nodded, his gaze drifting to where Robert and Clara stood, their skin now perfectly mimicking the star field visible through a nearby viewport. I have, Captain. I must admit, I find the potential of their hybrid abilities fascinating. Before Thora could respond, alarms blared throughout the complex. All personnel, prepare for immediate departure, Chancellor Mokta's voice boomed over the intercom. We have a limited window to reach the anomaly. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. Robert and Clara were escorted to a specially designed quarantine bay on the horizon, their new containment suits gleaming under the ship's lights. The expedition team boarded, a mix of human and Klingon faces united in purpose. As the horizon broke free of the planet's atmosphere, the true scale of their mission began to sink in. The ship's view screens showed the vast emptiness of space, broken only by the distant shimmer of the quantum fluctuation field surrounding their target. In the quarantine bay, Robert and Clara sat in meditation, their minds linked not only to each other, but to the ever-present consciousness of the Kahless messenger. Suddenly they gasped in unison, their eyes flying open. Captain, Robert's voice crackled over the intercom. We're sensing something. The messenger is showing us images. Thora rushed to the observation window of the quarantine bay, her eyes widening as she saw what was happening inside. The air around Robert and Clara shimmered, coalescing into vivid holographic projections. Scenes flickered to life, strange bipedal beings that seemed to combine features of humans, Klingons, and other unknown species. By Kales, Lieutenant Korg breathed, having followed the captain. What are we seeing? Dr. Zaravex's voice came over the intercom, tight with excitement. Captain, these images, they appear to be depicting an ancient civilization. Possibly the creators of the space station were approaching. As the horizon pushed deeper into space, the holographic projections intensified. They showed vast cities, advanced technology, and beings that seemed to shift and change at will. But beneath the wonder, there was an undercurrent of unease. The images began to affect the crew, human and Klingon alike. Captain, the ship's chief medical officer reported, I'm detecting elevated levels of hormones and neurotransmitters throughout the crew. It seems the hybrid pheromones are penetrating our containment measures. Thora felt it herself, a strange mix of heightened awareness and an almost electric tension in the air. She saw it in the faces of her crew, humans and Klingons exchanging glances, their usual barriers of formality and species division beginning to crumble. Maintain discipline, she ordered, her voice firm despite the flush she felt rising in her cheeks. Focus on your duties. As the horizon approached the edge of the quantum fluctuation field, the ship began to shudder. Warning lights flashed across control panels, and the hum of the engines took on a strained quality. Shields failing, the tactical officer reported, his voice tight. The fluctuations are too intense. In the quarantine bay, Robert and Kalera stood, their containment suits now seeming to ripple and flow like liquid metal. They raised their hands in unison, and a visible wave of energy pulsed outward. Engineering, Thora called. What's happening? The chief engineer's voice came back, filled with awe. Captain, they're creating some kind of gravitation bubble around the ship. It's stabilizing our approach. With Robert and Kalera's hybrid abilities protecting them, the horizon pushed through the quantum fluctuations. As they emerged on the other side, the view screens filled with a sight that left the entire crew speechless. The ancient space station loomed before them, a massive structure that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Its surface shifted and changed, organic curves blending with geometric precision. But it wasn't alone. Surrounding the station was a swarm of crystalline entities, their faceted bodies refracting the light of a dying star. As the horizon approached, the entities turned, their attention now focused on the intruding ship. Evasive maneuvers, Thora ordered, but it was too late. Energy beams lanced out from the crystalline beings, slicing through the horizon's shields like they weren't even there. In the quarantine bay, Robert and Kalera's bodies began to change once more. Their skin erupted in complex patterns of bioluminescence, pulsing and shifting in rhythmic sequences. The crystalline entities paused their attack, their own bodies beginning to glow in response. They're communicating, Lieutenant Korg said, his voice filled with wonder. The hybrids are actually communicating with them. As the crew of the Horizon watched in amazement, an energy corridor began to form, leading directly to the space station. The crystalline entities moved aside, creating a clear path for the ship. Take us in, Thora ordered, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. Prepare for docking procedures. As the Horizon glided towards the ancient structure, Robert and Kalera felt a powerful psychic pull. Their minds reached out, touching the vast alien consciousness that permeated the station. It's alive, Kalera whispered, her voice filled with awe. The station, it's alive. The Horizon shuddered as it made contact with the docking port, the sound of airlock seals engaging echoing through the ship. As the expedition team prepared to enter the station, they knew they stood on the threshold of a discovery that would change everything. The true nature of their hybrid abilities, the origins of their species, and the legacy of an ancient civilization awaited them within the living heart of the space station. The living heart of the space station pulsed with an otherworldly energy as the Horizon's airlock engaged. Captain Thora Vex took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. Expedition team, prepare for entry, she ordered, her voice steady despite the tension thrumming through her body. Dr. Vex, Dr. Krell, you'll lead the scientific analysis. Lieutenant Korg, coordinate security. Robert, Kalera, you're our guides. As the airlock cycled open, The team stepped into a corridor that seemed to breathe. Bioluminescent patterns rippled along the walls, responding to their presence. Robert and Kalara moved forward, their containment suits now perfectly mimicking the station's organic architecture. "It's calling to us," Kalara whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. The team advanced deeper into the station, guided by the hybrid couple's intuition. They soon found themselves in a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and pulsating data streams. Dr. Zara Vex approached a central console, her fingers hovering over the alien interface. "This appears to be the main control hub," she said, her voice tight with excitement. "If we can access the station's database—" Before she could finish, Robert and Kalara stepped forward. Their skin rippled, taking on a metallic sheen. As they placed their hands on the console, their bodies seemed to merge with the technology. "Incredible," Dr. Krell muttered, his cybernetic eye whirring as it recorded every detail. "They're interfacing directly with the system." The air filled with holographic projections, displaying streams of data and images too fast for the human eye to follow. Robert and Kalara's eyes glowed with an inner light as they processed the information flood. "Captain," Robert gasped, his voice strained, "we're accessing the station's quantum computer. The data, it's overwhelming." Thora watched in awe as the hybrid couple became living conduits for the ancient knowledge. "What are you seeing?" she asked, her curiosity overriding her caution. Kalara's voice was distant, as if coming from light years away. "An empire that spanned galaxies, a hybridization project to create the perfect spacefaring species." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Dr. Vex rushed to a secondary console, her fingers flying over the controls. "Captain, we're detecting multiple stasis pods activating in a nearby section." Thora snapped into action. "Dr. Krell, take a team to investigate those pods. Lieutenant Korg, secure our position here. Dr. Vex, continue working with Robert and Kalara to decrypt this data." As the team split up, Thora felt a strange tingling sensation on her skin. She noticed other crew members shifting uncomfortably, their faces flushed. "Captain," the ship's medical officer reported over the comm, "the hybrid pheromones are intensifying. Our containment measures are failing." Thora gritted her teeth, fighting the wave of disorientation. "Acknowledged. All personnel, stay focused on your tasks." In the stasis pod chamber, Dr. Krell made a startling discovery. "These aren't just preservation units," he reported, his voice filled with awe. "They're genetic incubators. The specimens inside are still evolving." Back in the control hub, Robert and Kalara suddenly stiffened. Their eyes rolled back, revealing only whites as their bodies began to convulse. "Medical team to the control hub now!" Thora shouted, rushing to the hybrid couple's side. As the medical team worked to stabilize Robert and Kalara, the station's system surged with activity. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing images of a civilization beyond imagination. Lieutenant Korg, his face beaded with sweat, approached Captain Vex. "Captain, I volunteer to undergo controlled exposure to their pheromones. If we can understand these changes—" Thora hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, she nodded. "Proceed, but with extreme caution." As the expedition team delved deeper into the station's mysteries, none of them noticed the small, pulsating egg hidden in a shadowy corner of the control hub. Its surface rippled, responding to the presence of the hybrids. The egg began to crack, a tiny tendril emerging from within. The creature inside sensed the hybrid energy permeating the station, calling to it, awakening it from its millennia-long slumber. As Robert and Kalara regained consciousness, their eyes now swirling with iridescent patterns, the newly hatched creature slithered from its shell. It resembled a miniature version of the sandworm that had triggered their initial transformation. The mini sandworm raised its head, sensing the hybrid couple. It moved towards them, drawn by an instinct older than time itself. Captain Thora Vex, her attention divided between the numerous crises unfolding around her, failed to notice the small creature's approach. As it neared Robert and Kalara, the station's lights pulsed in rhythm with its movements. The stage was set for a revelation that would shake the foundations of both human and Klingon societies. The ancient hybridization project, hidden for eons, was about to unveil its secrets to a galaxy unprepared for the truth of their origins. But fate had other plans. Captain Thora Vex's comm badge crackled to life, interrupting the tense moment. Captain, this is the bridge. We're detecting multiple ships approaching our position. They appear to be Federation and Klingon vessels. Thora's eyes widened. The joint task force had arrived sooner than expected. In that instant, she made a decision that would alter the course of history. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency departure. We're leaving the station. The order sent shockwaves through the expedition team. Dr. Vex looked up from her console, her face a mixture of shock and disappointment. Captain, we've barely scratched the surface of the data here. We can't just... We have to, Thora cut her off, her voice firm. This knowledge, this power, it's too much for any one government to control. We need time to understand it, to prepare for its implications. As the team hurried back to the horizon, Robert and Kalara stumbled, their bodies still reeling from the massive data influx. Lieutenant Korg and Dr. Krell supported them, practically carrying the hybrid couple through the station's pulsating corridors. None of them noticed the small serpentine form that slithered after them, its bioluminescent patterns mimicking the station's walls. Back on the horizon, alarms blared as the ship disengaged from the ancient space station. The view screen showed the crystalline entities scattering, their faceted bodies refracting the light of the dying star as they moved aside. Engineering, give me everything you've got, Thora ordered, her hands gripping the arms of her command chair. We need to clear the quantum fluctuation field before the task force can lock onto us. The ship shuddered as its engines strained against the bizarre physics of their surroundings. On the bridge, officers called out a cascade of system warnings. Shields failing. Structural integrity at 60% and dropping. Warp core temperature approaching critical levels. In the medical bay, Dr. Zara Vex and her team worked frantically to stabilize Robert and Kalara. The hybrid couple's skin rippled with complex patterns, their bodies struggling to process the vast amount of information they'd absorbed. Their neural patterns are off the charts, Dr. Vex reported, her voice tight with concern. It's like their brains are rewiring themselves in real time. Suddenly, Lieutenant Korg stiffened, his enhanced senses picking up something the others couldn't detect. Captain, he called over the comm, I'm sensing an energy buildup from the station. It's targeting us. Thora's response was immediate. Evasive maneuvers. Get us out of here. Now. The horizon banked hard, narrowly avoiding a brilliant beam of energy that lanced out from the station. But as they watched in horror, the beam split into dozens of smaller projectiles. These crystalline probes streaked towards the ship, latching onto its hull with a series of dull thuds that resonated through the deck plating. What's happening? Thora demanded, watching as the probes began to glow, interfacing with the horizon systems. Before anyone could respond, the ship lurched violently. The warp core screamed in protest as an unknown energy suffused the vessel. Thora felt a moment of weightlessness, then a crushing force as the horizon was catapulted into faster-than-light travel. In the medical bay, Robert and Kalara's bodies underwent another startling transformation. Their skin took on a crystalline sheen, mimicking the structure of the station's guardians. Dr. Vex watched in amazement as they instinctively reached out, their hands melding with the nearest console. They're interfacing directly with the ship, she breathed, her scientific curiosity temporarily overriding her concern. Throughout the horizon, systems flickered and changed. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing star charts of regions no human or Klingon had ever seen. The ship's computer spoke in an alien language, then switched to Federation Standard, its voice sounding more organic, more alive. As the crisis deepened, Thora made another difficult decision. All non-essential personnel, report to the stasis pods immediately. We don't know how long this journey will last, and we need to conserve resources. She assembled a skeleton crew, herself, Dr. Zara Vex, Dr. Krell, Lieutenant Korg, and a handful of key specialists. They would monitor the ship's functions and the condition of the hybrid couple as they hurtled through uncharted space. Hours turned into days as the Horizon continued its pre-programmed course. They passed near energy signatures that matched the ancient outposts from the station's database. With each encounter, the ship received new data packets, further altering its systems and deepening the changes in Robert and Kalara. In engineering, Chief Engineer Volok made a startling discovery. "Captain, you need to see this," he called, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Thora arrived to find the engine room transformed. Crystalline structures had grown throughout the space, pulsing with energy in perfect synchronization with the warp core. "It's not just the ship that's changing," Volok explained, pointing to a small serpentine creature that was winding its way through the new growths. "These things are appearing all over the ship. They seem to be facilitating the integration of the alien technology." Thora recognized the creature immediately. It was a larger version of the mini Sandworm that had hatched on the station. As she watched, it split into two smaller copies of itself, each one slithering off to interface with a different system. "Captain," Lieutenant Korg's voice came over the comm, tinged with excitement and an undertone of something else. A new confidence, perhaps even arrogance. "I've made contact with these creatures. They're showing me things. About the ship, about where we're going." Thora's response was cautious. "Report to the bridge immediately, Lieutenant. We need to know what we're dealing with." As she turned to leave engineering, Thora caught her reflection in a polished panel. She froze, her hand rising to touch her face. Her skin had taken on a subtle iridescence, and her eyes seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. The changes weren't limited to her. Throughout the ship, the remaining awake crew members were exhibiting similar transformations. Their bodies were adapting, evolving to interface with the ship's new hybrid systems. On the bridge, Lieutenant Korg's report painted a picture both thrilling and terrifying. "We're being drawn to a massive construct at the edge of the galaxy," he explained, his eyes glowing with an inner light. "It appears to be the central hub of the ancient civilization's experiments." As he spoke, the main view screen flickered to life, showing a colossal structure that defied comprehension. A Dyson sphere, encompassing an entire star system, loomed before them. In the medical bay, Robert and Kalara stirred, their transformations stabilizing. Their skin shimmered with a metallic sheen, and their eyes pulsed in harmony with the ship's energy systems. They spoke in unison, their voices resonating with newfound power. "We've seen it," they said, their words echoing through the ship's communication systems. "The ultimate goal of the Ancient Ones, a hybrid species transcending the limitations of organic life and artificial intelligence." The horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the Dyson sphere filling their view. As they watched, the sphere's outer layer shimmered and parted, revealing an entrance large enough for the ship to pass through. Captain Thora Vex stood on the bridge, facing the most significant decision of her career, of human and Klingon history. Enter the ancient construct and embrace the unknown, or attempt to return to known space with the information they'd gathered. The crew, their bodies and minds forever altered by the journey, looked to her for guidance. Robert and Kalara, their transformation now complete, stood at her side, embodying the potential future of both their species. Before Thora could give her order, alarms blared throughout the ship. Multiple vessels were approaching from within the Dyson sphere. The mini Sandworms, now integrated into every system of the horizon, grew agitated. Their bioluminescent patterns flashed urgently, signaling that the next phase of the hybridization project was about to begin. As the unknown ships drew closer, the crew of the Horizon braced themselves for first contact with the descendants of the ancient civilization. Whatever happened next would reshape the galaxy forever. As the unknown ships drew closer, Captain Thora Vex made her decision. "Helm, take us in," she ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. The Horizon glided forward, passing through the shimmering barrier of the Dyson sphere's entrance. The vast internal space of the sphere unfolded before them, a world within a world. The captured star at its center bathed everything in a warm golden light. The crew gasped in collective awe as they took in the sight of massive orbital habitats floating in the distance, each one a potential home to countless hybrid species. No sooner had they entered than a fleet of sleek, biomechanical ships surrounded the horizon. These vessels moved with an otherworldly grace, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Lieutenant Korg, his hybrid senses now finely tuned, reported, "Captain, they're not hostile. They're escorting us." As the horizon was guided deeper into the sphere, Robert and Kalara suddenly stiffened, their eyes glazing over. Dr. Zara Vex rushed to their side, scanner in hand. "What's happening to them?" Thora asked, concern etching her features. Before Dr. Vex could respond, Robert spoke, his voice overlaid with an ethereal quality. "We're receiving a message, an invitation." Kalara nodded, her iridescent skin shimmering. "The sphere's central authority requests our presence on the primary command station." Thora weighed her options quickly. "Very well," she said after a moment. "You two will go, but be careful." As Robert and Kalara prepared to depart, the mini sandworms scattered throughout the ship began to move with purpose. They converged in the shuttle bay, merging into a single, larger entity about the size of a small horse. The creature undulated, its bioluminescent patterns flashing urgently. "It wants to go with us," Kalara said, somehow understanding the creature's intent. Thora hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but stay alert." The trio boarded one of the escort vessels, its interior reconfiguring to accommodate them. As they detached from the horizon, Thora watched them go, a mix of anticipation and trepidation coursing through her. Back on the bridge, the ship's systems continued to evolve. Holographic displays morphed into organic interfaces, pulsing with life. Lieutenant Korg found himself instinctively interfacing with these new systems, his mind merging with the ship's consciousness. "Captain," he called out, his eyes glowing with an inner light. "The ship, it's changing to adapt to this environment. I can feel it." Dr. Zara Vex and Dr. Krell huddled over a console, analyzing the data streaming in. "The crystalline probes," Dr. Vex muttered. "They're altering the ship's very structure. It's becoming a hybrid entity itself." As the horizon continued its journey deeper into the sphere, Robert, Kalara, and their unusual companion approached the central command station. The structure dwarfed everything around it, a colossal nexus of technology and organic matter. They docked smoothly, the station's systems seamlessly integrating with their escort vessel. As the airlock cycled open, they were greeted by a being unlike any they had ever encountered. She stood tall and elegant, her form a perfect blend of organic tissue and advanced technology. Bioluminescent patterns danced across her skin, and her eyes held depths of wisdom and knowledge. "Welcome," she said, her voice resonating on multiple frequencies. "I am Zara Shul, hybrid overseer of this sphere. We have much to discuss." Robert and Kalara followed Zara Shul into a vast chamber, its walls alive with swirling data streams and holographic displays. The sandworm creature slithered alongside them, its patterns pulsing in harmony with the chamber's energy. Zara Shul turned to face them, her expression solemn. "What I am about to tell you will reshape your understanding of the universe," she began. "The ancient civilization you know as the Precursors created this hybridization project for a singular purpose, to ensure the survival and evolution of life in the face of a galactic threat." She gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic representations of countless hybrid species. "This sphere is an arc, preserving and preparing these beings for eventual reintegration into the galaxy." As Zarazul spoke, the sandworm creature began to change. Its form shifted and grew, taking on a more humanoid shape. Robert and Kalara watched in amazement as it transformed into a being of pure energy and data. "I am the Nexus," it announced, its voice echoing through their minds. "An artificial intelligence created by the Precursors to guide you here. Your journey was no accident." Back on the horizon, alarms blared. Lieutenant Korg's eyes widened as he processed the incoming data. "Captain," he called out, his voice urgent, "long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching the sphere. It's a combined human and Klingon force." Captain Thora Vex felt the weight of command settle heavily on her shoulders. The comm system crackled to life. carrying a message from the approaching fleet. USS Horizon, this is Admiral Zhen of the United Federation of Planets. You are ordered to stand down and prepare for retrieval. Refusal to comply will be considered an act of hostility. As Thora contemplated her response, she knew that her decision would shape the future of not just her crew, but potentially all of known space. The Horizon hung suspended in the vast interior of the Dyson sphere, caught between two worlds, two futures, with the fate of civilizations hanging in the balance. Balance. Thora's finger hovered over the comm button, her mind racing through potential responses. Before she could speak, Robert's voice crackled through the ship's systems. Captain, hold your response. We're returning to the Horizon with critical information. Minutes later, Robert and Kalara materialized on the bridge, their shimmering forms drawing all eyes. The sandworm creature, now transformed into a being of pure energy, hovered beside them. Captain, Robert began, his voice resonating with newfound authority. We've made contact with the sphere's overseer. The situation is more complex than we realized. Kalara stepped forward, her iridescent skin pulsing with urgency. We've chosen to lead the hybrid reintegration effort. It's our best chance for a peaceful resolution. As they spoke, the crew noticed the changes in the ship around them. The once metallic walls now undulated with organic textures, bioluminescent patterns coursing through the structure like veins. Lieutenant Korg's fingers danced over his console, now a living, pulsating interface. The ship, he murmured, eyes wide with wonder. I can feel its systems. They're alive. Robert nodded, unsurprised. The hybridization process affects everything. Captain, we need to act as intermediaries between the sphere and the approaching fleet. Thora absorbed the information, her own altered physiology adapting to the ship's new systems. She felt the weight of the decision before her, the fate of civilizations hanging in the balance. Very well, she said, her voice steady. Helm, take us to the outer barrier. We'll initiate communication from there. As the Horizon glided through the sphere's interior, Robert and Kalara briefed the captain on the hybridization project and the looming galactic threat. The crew listened in stunned silence, their own transformations suddenly cast in a new light. Approaching the barrier, the Horizon's hybrid systems engaged. A massive holographic display materialized, bridging the gap between the sphere and the approaching fleet. Robert and Kalara stepped forward, their forms projected to both sides. This is Robert Chen and Kalara, addressing both the United Federation fleet and the inhabitants of this Dyson sphere. Robert began, his voice echoing across space. Kalara continued, what you see before you is not a threat, but an opportunity. This sphere houses a project vital to the survival of all our species. They explained the purpose of the hybridization project, emphasizing the potential benefits for both humans and Klingons. As they spoke, the Horizon's hull pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, a living testament to the power of the technology within the sphere. Admiral Zhen's voice crackled through the comm system, skepticism evident in his tone. This is a lot to take in, Horizon. How can we verify your claims? We propose a compromise, Thora interjected. Send a small delegation to enter the sphere. See for yourselves the truth of our words. After tense negotiations, an agreement was reached. As preparations began for the delegation's arrival, a message came through from Zara Shul, the sphere's overseer. The hybridization process has reached a critical stage, her ethereal voice announced. New beings are ready to emerge. Robert, Kalara, your presence is requested. With a nod from Captain Vex, the couple departed, accompanied by Dr. Zara Vex and Dr. Krell. They were escorted to a vast chamber deep within the sphere, filled with thousands of glowing pods. Each pod contains a developing hybrid, Zara Shul explained, her form shimmering with barely held back energy. And this one, she gestured to a pulsing pod, is ready to emerge. Robert and Kalara approached the pod, their hybrid physiology allowing them to interface with its systems. As they made contact, the pod opened with a soft hiss, revealing a new being unlike any they had seen before. The creature's skin shimmered with a metallic sheen, its eyes glowing with an inner light. It combined the most advantageous traits of humans and Klingons, enhanced by precursor technology. As it took its first breath, a telepathic bond surged between it and the couple. "It recognizes us," Clara whispered, awe filling her voice. Robert cradled the newborn hybrid, a surge of emotions washing over him. We're its progenitors, he realized, the weight of their new roles settling upon them. Back on the horizon, Lieutenant Korg's transformation accelerated. Bioluminescent patterns erupted across his skin, mirroring those on the ship's hull. He gasped as his mind fully merged with the ship's organic systems, granting him unprecedented control. "Captain," he called out, his voice tinged with excitement and fear. "I can feel every system, every circuit. It's incredible." As the delegation from the human Klingon fleet prepared to enter the sphere, an urgent message flashed across the horizon's communication array. Captain Vex's face grew grim as she read the report. "Political unrest on Earth and the Klingon homeworld," she announced to the bridge crew. "News of the hybridization project has leaked. Factions are clashing in major cities, threatening governmental stability." In the birthing chamber, Robert and Clara stood with the newborn hybrid in their arms, acutely aware of the challenges that lay ahead. They exchanged a look of willpower, knowing that their journey was nowhere near the end. "We need to prepare," Robert said, his voice low and intense. "The delegation will be here soon, and we have a new society to build." Clara nodded, her eyes fixed on the hybrid child. "And we must find a way to bridge the gap between our old lives and our new roles." As they spoke, more pods began to pulse with increased intensity. The chamber hummed with the promise of new life, new possibilities, and the dawn of a hybrid civilization that would reshape the galaxy. Zara Zul approached, her form radiating with purpose. "It is time," she said, gesturing towards the exit. "The delegation approaches. We must greet them and show them the future we are building here." Robert and Clara followed, the newborn hybrid cradled between them, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their quest to guide the emergence of a new hybrid society. As Robert and Clara prepared to face the delegation with their newborn hybrid, a tremor shook the chamber. Zara Zul's form flickered, her eyes widening with surprise. "An anomaly," she announced, her voice resonating with urgency. "A dormant section of the sphere has activated." Robert and Clara exchanged glances, their bond allowing for silent communication. The infant hybrid in their arms stirred, its luminescent patterns pulsing with heightened intensity. "We need to investigate," Robert said, his voice firm. Zara Zul nodded. "Your hybrid physiology may be crucial for accessing its contents. I request that you investigate immediately." With a quick communication to Captain Vex, Robert and Clara set out for the newly discovered chamber, accompanied by Dr. Zara Vex and Lieutenant Korg. As they approached, the entrance responded to their presence, sliding open with a soft hiss. The group entered a vast, dimly lit space filled with ancient technology. Illuminated by a soft, pulsating glow, they saw a series of stasis pods arranged in a circular pattern. At the center stood a pedestal housing a large, shimmering crystal. As Robert and Clara moved closer, the crystal's glow intensified, reacting to their hybrid DNA. Suddenly, it projected a holographic image of a being unlike any they had encountered before. "I am Xanthor," the being announced, its voice echoing through the chamber, lead scientist of the hybridization project. The hologram explained the chamber's purpose as a failsafe, designed to activate only when suitable hybrid beings were created to carry on the precursor's legacy. "This crystal," Xanthor continued, gesturing to the pulsating object, "contains the combined knowledge and experiences of our civilization. It awaits absorption by worthy hybrid beings." Before Robert and Clara could fully process this revelation, alarms blared throughout the sphere. Lieutenant Korg's eyes glowed as he interfaced with the ship's systems. "Captain," he reported, his voice tense, "the human Klingon delegation has taken hostile action. Extremists are attempting to sabotage key systems within the sphere." The crystal pulsed more intensely, and Xanthor's hologram flickered. "The extremist actions have destabilized the sphere's containment systems. If not addressed quickly, it could lead to catastrophic energy release." Robert and Clara faced a critical decision: stop the extremists and stabilize the sphere, or absorb the precursor knowledge to address the situation more effectively. As they grappled with this choice, movement caught their attention. The newborn hybrid had followed them into the chamber, drawn by the crystal's energy. To everyone's astonishment, the crystal reacted to the infant's presence, splitting into two smaller crystals. Sandthor's hologram analyzed this development. This may be the solution. The knowledge can be divided, allowing you both to absorb a portion immediately. Without hesitation, Robert and Clara each took one of the smaller crystals. As they initiated the absorption process, their bodies underwent another transformation. Their skin became luminescent, pulsing with patterns that mimicked the sphere's internal energy flows. Their eyes glowed with an intense light, reflecting the vast knowledge they'd acquired. Empowered by the precursor knowledge, they quickly formulated a plan. Robert focused on containing the energy instabilities, manipulating the sphere's power distribution networks with newfound mastery. Clara turned her attention to locating and neutralizing the extremists, using the internal sensors to track their movements. Dr. Vex, Lieutenant Korg, Clara commanded, her voice resonating with authority, protect the infant and these stasis pods. We'll handle the crisis. As Robert and Clara worked to drive the situation, chaos erupted throughout the sphere. Security forces mobilized to counter the extremist threat, while the Horizon moved into a defensive position near the main control systems. Robert's mind merged with the sphere's power grid, his consciousness expanding to encompass vast networks of energy. He visualized the destabilized areas as turbulent storms, using his new abilities to calm and redirect the flows. Meanwhile, Clara's heightened senses allowed her to perceive the movements of the extremists as bright flares against the backdrop of the sphere's internal structure. She coordinated with security teams, guiding them to intercept the saboteurs. In the hidden chamber, Dr. Zara Vex and Lieutenant Korg stood guard over the infant hybrid and the precursor stasis pods. The baby's bioluminescent patterns pulsed in sync with the chamber's energy fields, its eyes fixed on the hologram of Sandthor. As Robert stabilized another section of the sphere, he felt the strain of maintaining such vast control. Clara, he communicated telepathically, how's your progress? Clara's response came tinged with commitment. 3 extremist groups neutralized. 2 more on the move near the central core. I'm coordinating an intercept now. Outside the sphere, Captain Thora Vex worked tirelessly to manage the diplomatic crisis. The main human Klingon fleet demanded explanations for the energy surges, unaware of the extremists' actions within. Admiral, Thora addressed the fleet commander, her voice steady despite the chaos. We're dealing with an internal security situation. I assure you, we're working to drive it quickly and safely. Back in the hidden chamber, Robert and Clara's bodies glowed with intensifying energy as they pushed their new abilities to the limit. The fate of the hybridization project, and potentially the entire galaxy, rested on their success. As they worked, the infant hybrid watched with glowing eyes, its tiny form a living symbol of the future they fought to protect. The chamber hummed with power, the stasis pods containing the precursors standing as silent witnesses to this pivotal moment in galactic history. With the crisis nowhere near the end, Robert and Clara pressed on, their minds and bodies forever altered by the precursor knowledge. The next few moments would determine the fate of not just the sphere, but the course of galactic evolution itself. As Robert and Clara pushed their newfound abilities to their limits, a revelation struck them simultaneously. Their enhanced minds, infused with precursor knowledge, detected a hidden network of emergency protocols buried deep within the sphere's core programming. Clara, are you seeing this? Robert communicated telepathically, his consciousness intertwined with the sphere's systems. Yes, she responded, her mental voice tinged with excitement. These protocols could be our key to containing the situation. Without hesitation, they initiated the activation sequence. The sphere's internal structure hummed with energy as the lockdown protocols engaged. Barriers of shimmering energy materialized, isolating sections of the sphere and trapping the remaining extremists in place. Aboard the Horizon, Captain Thora Vex's fingers danced across the ship's hybrid interface. The vessel's hull pulsed with bioluminescent patterns as she directed its energy reserves into a protective barrier around the sphere's main control center. Lieutenant Korg, she called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. I need you to boost our defensive capabilities. Korg, his body now fully transformed, stepped forward. His eyes glowed as he merged his consciousness with the ship's systems. The Horizon's shields flared to life, reinforced by Korg's hybrid abilities. In the hidden chamber, Dr. Zara Vex watched in awe as the newborn hybrid's bioluminescent patterns began to synchronize with the energy signatures emanating from the precursor stasis pods. The infant's eyes filled with an otherworldly intelligence fixed upon the nearest pod. Incredible, Dr. Vex whispered, her scientific mind racing to comprehend the implications. The pod's surface rippled, and with a soft hiss, it opened. A figure emerged, her form ethereal and radiating ancient wisdom. She turned her gaze to Dr. Vex, her eyes adjusting to the light after eons of slumber. I am Zelnaga, she announced, her voice resonating with power. The situation is grave. I must assist. Zelnaga's presence seemed to accelerate the awakening of the other precursors. As more pods stirred to life, she turned her attention to the sphere systems, her mind easily interfacing with the ancient technology. Robert, Clara, she projected her thoughts to the hybrid couple, I can guide you to access deeper levels of control. With Zelnaga's assistance, Robert and Clara delved into previously inaccessible systems. They uncovered a network of energy dampeners, capable of neutralizing the extremist weapons. Activating the system, they watched as the saboteurs' energy weapons flickered and died, leaving them vulnerable to the sphere's security forces. As the immediate threat subsided, alarms blared throughout the structure. Robert's enhanced senses detected a growing instability in the sphere's power core. The sabotage has triggered a chain reaction, he communicated to Clara and Zelnaga. We need to realign the core's energy matrix. The trio converged on the power core, their minds linking to form a unified consciousness. As they worked to stabilize the volatile energies, Robert and Clara felt their bodies changing once again. Their skin took on a crystalline quality, glowing with an inner light. Energy arced from the destabilizing core, threatening to overwhelm them. But instead of causing harm, the energy flowed into Robert and Clara's transformed bodies. They became living conduits, redirecting the excess power throughout the sphere's systems. In the hidden chamber, Dr. Vex and Lieutenant Korg observed the awakening precursors with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Each ancient being that emerged seemed to possess unique abilities and knowledge. The newborn hybrid, still cradled in Dr. Vex's arms, began to change. Its tiny form grew at an accelerated rate, its mind expanding to accommodate vast amounts of information. Outside the sphere, Captain Thoravex worked tirelessly to maintain communication with the human Klingon fleet. The Horizon's enhanced systems allowed her to provide real-time updates, easing the tensions that threatened to escalate into open conflict. As Robert and Clara completed the power core stabilization, a surge of energy pulsed through the sphere. Dormant systems flickered to life, revealing a vast network of machinery that had lain hidden for millennia. Terraforming equipment, Zelnaga explained, her voice filled with pride and sadness. The legacy of our civilization, capable of transforming entire worlds. The implications of this discovery washed over Robert and Clara. The potential to solve resource scarcity and overpopulation issues was immense, but so too were the risks of introducing such powerful technology. As more precursors awakened, including the military strategist Vorkath, discussions about the future of the hybridization project and the use of the terraforming technology began in earnest. Robert and Clara stood before a holographic display of the galaxy, their crystalline skin reflecting the light of countless stars. Potential planets for terraforming glowed softly, each representing a possible future for hybrid civilization. The couple exchanged a glance, their bond allowing for silent communication. They understood that their role as mediators between humans, Klingons, hybrids, and precursors had only just begun. The challenges ahead were immense, but so too were the possibilities. As they contemplated their next steps, alarms sounded once again. A new energy signature had been detected at the edge of the system, unlike anything they had encountered before. Robert and Kalara turned their attention to this new development, ready to face whatever challenges it might bring. The alarms blaring through the Dyson sphere took on a new urgency as Robert and Kalara's attention snapped to the holographic display. A red dot pulsed at the edge of the system, signaling an unknown energy signature. Before they could investigate further, another alert flashed across the screen. This time, it was from the sphere's internal security systems. Robert's crystalline fingers danced across the interface, pulling up a detailed report. "Kalara, we have a problem," he said, his voice tense. "One of the teleportation platforms has been activated without authorization." Kalara's bioluminescent patterns flickered with concern. "The extremists we missed earlier?" Robert nodded grimly. "It appears so, and they've taken something with them." They rushed to the teleportation chamber, their enhanced bodies allowing them to move at incredible speeds through the sphere's corridors. When they arrived, the platform was empty, but the energy residue told a clear story. "They've stolen precursor technology," Kalara said, her enhanced senses picking up traces of the unique energy signature. Robert's mind raced through the implications. "We need to act fast. If they figure out how to use that tech, it could destabilize everything we've worked for," Kalara finished. They quickly formulated a plan, their mental link allowing for rapid communication. Robert reached out telepathically to Vorkath, the newly awakened precursor military strategist. "Vorkath, we need your expertise. A group of extremists has stolen precursor technology and escaped the sphere. We're assembling a retrieval team." The precursor's response was immediate and resolute. "I will join you. This technology must not fall into the wrong hands." As they prepared for the mission, Robert and Kalara felt a familiar tingling sensation across their skin. They watched in fascination as their bodies underwent another transformation. Their skin shimmered and shifted, taking on the colors and textures of their surroundings. "Adaptive camouflage," Robert observed, blending seamlessly with the metallic wall behind him. Kalara nodded, her own form nearly invisible against the backdrop of blinking consoles. "This will be invaluable for a covert operation." Captain Thorovex's voice came through their communication devices. "The Horizon is ready for departure. We've enhanced our tracking systems with precursor designs. If those extremists are out there, we'll find them." As the team made final preparations, Dr. Zara Vex approached, cradling the rapidly growing hybrid infant in her arms. Her eyes were wide with excitement and a hint of trepidation. "Robert, Kalara, I've made a remarkable discovery about the child," she said, her voice hushed. "Its genetic structure is in a constant state of adaptation. It's not just combining human and Klingon traits, but also incorporating beneficial aspects from the awakened precursors." Robert and Kalara exchanged a look of amazement. "What does this mean for its development?" Kalara asked. Dr. Vex's expression was one of wonder and uncertainty. "I believe this child represents the next evolutionary step for hybrids. In time, its abilities might surpass even yours." The implications of this revelation hung in the air, but there was no time to dwell on them. The mission to recover the stolen technology took precedence. Aboard the Horizon, the hybrid systems hummed with power as they departed the Dyson sphere. The ship's enhanced sensors probed the depths of space, searching for any trace of the extremist passage. After hours of searching, a faint energy trail appeared on the scanners. It led to a remote planet on the fringes of Klingon space, a world previously deemed too harsh for habitation. As they approached, signs of recent activity became apparent. The planet's surface showed patches of green amidst the barren landscape, clear indications of terraforming. "They're using the stolen technology," Vorkath growled, his ancient eyes narrowing at the tactical display. Scans revealed a hastily constructed base on the surface. Energy readings suggested ongoing experiments with the precursor technology. Robert's face hardened as he processed the data. They're attempting to create their own hybrids. Without proper controls or understanding, this could be catastrophic. Kalara nodded, her camouflage skin rippling with grit. "We need to stop them before they destabilize the entire sector." The insertion team, led by Robert and Kalara, prepared for planetfall. As they descended through the atmosphere, They felt the planet's unique properties affecting their hybrid physiology. Their strength increased, and their movements became more fluid and rapid. Landing silently near the base, Robert and Kalara activated their camouflage abilities. They moved like ghosts through the perimeter defenses, their enhanced senses alert for any sign of detection. Inside the base, they witnessed scenes that filled them with horror and dedication. Captured humans and Klingons were being subjected to crude hybridization processes, their screams echoing through the corridors. Robert's face hardened as he watched a failed experiment writhe in agony. "We need to shut this down. Now!" Kalara nodded, her eyes scanning the facility's layout. The main lab should be 2 levels down. That's likely where they're keeping the stolen tech. As they made their way deeper into the base, Captain Vex's voice crackled through their comms. "Electromagnetic pulse ready on your signal. It'll knock out their defenses and communications." "Understood," Robert replied. "Stand by for our mark." They reached the central laboratory where they found the leader of the extremists, a Klingon scientist named Kronok. He stood before a pulsing mass of precursor technology, his eyes gleaming with manic intensity. "At last," Kronok proclaimed to his followers, "we will create a new hybrid race, one that will reshape the galaxy under our control." Robert and Kalara exchanged a glance. The moment to act had come. As they prepared to confront Kronok and his guards, the stolen precursor technology began to pulse erratically, energy surges arcing across the room. The base shuddered, alarms blaring as systems overloaded. Robert and Kalara faced a critical decision: secure the technology or apprehend the extremists. Time was running out, and the fate of the planet hung in the balance. Balance. Robert and Kalara exchanged a determined glance, their crystalline skin shimmering with the pulsing energy of the unstable precursor technology. "We need to contain this now," Robert said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. He extended his hands, focusing his hybrid abilities to create a shimmering energy field around the volatile mass. Kalara's eyes darted between Robert and the struggling Kronok. In a split-second decision, she activated her adaptive camouflage, her form blending seamlessly with the metallic walls of the lab. With a lightning speed, she subdued Kronok, rendering him unconscious with a precise strike. As alarms blared and the facility shuddered around them, Kalara rushed to Robert's side. "The containment field isn't strong enough," she observed, seeing the strain on Robert's face. Without hesitation, Kalara placed her hands alongside Robert's, their fingers intertwining. Together, they channeled their combined hybrid abilities into the containment field. The energy matrix stabilized, its erratic pulses smoothing into a steady hum. "We need to move this to the horizon," Robert said, his voice tight with concentration. Kalara nodded, maintaining her focus on the containment field. "I'll carry Kronok. Lead the way." As they navigated the crumbling corridors of the base, Robert's enhanced senses guided them through the safest path. Behind them, explosions rocked the facility, sending tremors through the floor. "Captain Vex," Kalara called into her communicator, "we need immediate extraction. The base is collapsing." "Understood," came the terse reply. "Prepare for emergency transport." They emerged from the facility just as a massive tremor shook the ground. The horizon swooped low, its hybrid systems creating a localized gravity well. Robert felt the familiar pull of the ship's tractor beam as they were lifted off the unstable planet's surface. Once aboard, Robert and Kalara worked swiftly to secure the precursor technology in the ship's reinforced cargo hold. Vorkath met them at the entrance, his ancient eyes scanning the contained energy mass. "You've done well," the precursor strategist said, his voice a low rumble. "But we're not out of danger yet." As if on cue, the ship's sensors blared a new alert. Captain Thoravex's voice came over the intercom. "Multiple ships approaching. Human and Klingon signatures detected." Robert and Kalara rushed to the bridge, their bodies still thrumming with excess energy from their ordeal. The main view screen showed a mix of Federation and Klingon vessels converging on their position. "They must have detected the energy surge from the planet," Kalara said, her mind racing through potential scenarios. Robert nodded, his expression grim. "We need to explain the situation before this escalates into a conflict." Drawing upon their diplomatic experience and newly acquired precursor knowledge, Robert and Kalara crafted a message. They explained the existence of the extremist faction and the danger posed by their unauthorized experiments, emphasizing the need for cooperation. As Captain Vex transmitted their message, Robert and Kalara felt a strange, tingling sensation coursing through their bodies. Their nervous systems seemed to be evolving, becoming hypersensitive to the energy fluctuations around them. Kalara gasped, her eyes widening. "Robert, do you feel that?" He nodded, his gaze fixed on the secured precursor technology. "There's something hidden within it, a data cache." While the tense standoff with the approaching fleet continued, Robert and Kalara focused their new abilities on the recovered technology. They uncovered a vast network of information about other extremist cells scattered throughout human and Klingon space. As the situation with the fleet was peacefully perseveranced, thanks to their diplomatic efforts, the Horizon set a course back to the Dyson sphere. During the journey, Robert and Kalara worked closely with Dr. Zara Vex, analyzing the recovered data cache. "This network is more extensive than we could have imagined," Dr. Vex said, her voice heavy with concern. "Some of these sympathizers hold influential positions in both societies." Robert's expression hardened as he processed the information. "We'll need to handle this carefully. Exposing them too quickly could cause widespread panic." Upon their return to the Dyson sphere, Zelnaga and the other awakened precursors greeted them. The ancient being's expressions were a mix of concern and admiration. "Your actions have accelerated the hybridization project beyond our initial projections," Zelnaga said, her ethereal voice resonating in their minds. Before Robert or Kalara could respond, they felt a powerful psychic pull. Turning, they saw a young child approaching, its eyes glowing with an inner light. "Sin," Kalara breathed, recognizing the rapidly developed hybrid infant they had left in the precursor's care. As they connected with Zin, a flood of visions washed over them. They saw glimpses of a future where hybrid beings served as mediators between countless alien civilizations. But these hopeful images were interspersed with scenes of conflict and resistance. The visions faded, leaving Robert and Kalara standing before the Precursor Council. The weight of their decision pressed upon them. Should they focus on neutralizing the remaining extremist threat, or accelerate the hybridization project to create a force capable of withstanding future challenges? As they prepared to announce their decision, alarms blared throughout the Dyson sphere. Captain Vex's voice cut through the noise. "Incoming transmission from Earth. Priority 1. Robert and Kalara exchanged a look, their bodies still adapting to their latest transformation. Whatever this message contained, they knew it would add yet another layer of complexity to their already monumental task. Whatever this message contained, they knew it would add yet another layer of complexity to their already monumental responsibilities. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Admiral Janeway. Her expression was grave as she addressed them. "Robert, Kalara, we have a situation. News of the hybridization project has leaked to the public on both Earth and Konos. The reaction has been volatile." Robert's crystalline skin pulsed with concern. "How bad is it, Admiral?" "Riots have broken out in major cities on both planets," Janeway replied, her voice tight. "Extremist groups are gaining traction, spreading fear about the potential consequences of human Klingon hybrids. We need you to address this crisis immediately." Kalara's eyes narrowed, her camouflaged skin rippling with willpower. "We understand, Admiral. We'll handle it." As the transmission ended, Robert and Kalara exchanged a look of shared purpose. Their decision regarding the extremist threat would have to wait. The immediate crisis demanded their attention. "Captain Vex," Robert called out, "we need to prepare a simultaneous broadcast to Earth and Konos. Can the Horizon systems handle it?" Thora Vex nodded, her fingers already dancing across the control panel. "With some modifications, yes. We can use the Dyson sphere's energy to boost our signal." As they began crafting their address, Robert and Kalara felt a strange sensation in their throats. Their vocal cords tingled and shifted, adapting to produce a wider range of frequencies. When they spoke, their voices resonated with a new depth and richness. "Our bodies are still evolving," Kalara observed. touching her throat in wonder. Robert nodded, testing his new voice. This could work to our advantage. Our words might resonate on a subconscious level with both humans and Klingons. As they finalized their message, a small figure approached them. Zin, the rapidly maturing hybrid child, looked up at them with eyes that glowed with inner wisdom. I want to help, the child said, its voice a melodious blend of human and Klingon tones. Kalara knelt beside Zin, feeling a surge of protective instinct. Are you sure? The broadcast will be seen by billions. Zin nodded solemnly. They need to see that hybrids are not to be feared. I can show them. Robert placed a hand on Zin's shoulder, marveling at the child's courage. Very well, you'll stand with us. As the broadcast began, Robert, Kalara, and Zin stood side by side before the camera. Their bodies shimmered with a soft, otherworldly light, a visual representation of their hybrid nature. Robert spoke first, his voice carrying a soothing resonance. People of Earth and Konos, we come to you not as separate species, but as a bridge between our two great civilizations. Kalara continued, her tone strong and confident. The hybridization project is not a threat, but a promise of a stronger, more unified future. They demonstrated some of their enhanced abilities, showcasing how their hybrid physiology combined the best traits of humans and Klingons. Zin stepped forward, speaking with a wisdom beyond their years about the potential for harmony and growth. As they spoke, reports began flooding in from both planets. The riots were calming, people gathering around screens to listen. The resonant quality of their voices, combined with the visual impact of their appearance, began to sway public opinion. Just as the broadcast concluded, Dr. Zara Vex burst onto the bridge, her face pale with concern. Robert, Kalara, we have a problem. My analysis of the recovered precursor technology has revealed something disturbing. She quickly explained that the uncontrolled hybridization experiments conducted by Kronox Group had created unstable hybrids. These beings, possessing fragmented precursor knowledge and unpredictable abilities, had escaped and were now scattered across several star systems. Robert's expression hardened as he processed this new threat. We need to track them down before they cause more damage or fall into the wrong hands. Kalara nodded, her mind already formulating strategies. We'll need to use everything we've learned, human, Klingon, and precursor tactics. As they discussed their plans, Robert and Kalara's skin began to change. Intricate patterns of bioluminescence spread across their bodies, mimicking the internal systems of the Dyson sphere. Captain Vex approached, her eyes widening at the sight. Your bodies are adapting again. These patterns, they look like they could interface with our systems. Robert touched his arm, feeling the energy pulsing beneath his skin. We might be able to use this to track the energy signatures of the rogue hybrids. As the crew of the Horizon prepared for their new mission, Selnaga and the Precursor Council entered the bridge. They carried with them two sleek, otherworldly exosuits. These will help stabilize and enhance your evolving abilities, Selnaga explained, her voice echoing in their minds. They are crafted from Dyson sphere materials and integrated with precursor technology. Robert and Kalara donned the suits, feeling a surge of power as the advanced technology merged with their hybrid physiology. The bioluminescent patterns on their skin pulsed in sync with the suit's energy fields. Lieutenant Korg approached, his own hybrid abilities having developed further. I've assembled a specialized security team for this mission. We're ready when you are. As final preparations were made, Robert and Kalara shared a quiet moment. Their fingers intertwined, the contact sending sparks of energy between them. Whatever happens out there, Robert said softly, we face it together. Kalara nodded, her eyes shining with tenacity and love. Always. The Horizon's engines hummed to life, its hybrid systems primed for the challenge ahead. As Robert and Kalara took their positions on the bridge, the vastness of space stretched out before them, holding both promise and peril. The hunt for the rogue hybrids was about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in their ever-evolving story. Journey. As the Horizon prepared to depart, the ship's sensors suddenly blared to life. Captain Vex's voice cut through the commotion on the bridge. Massive energy surge detected in a nearby star system. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. Robert and Kalara exchanged a knowing glance, their newly enhanced senses already attuned to the disturbance. It has to be one of the rogue hybrids, Kalara said, her voice carrying a hint of urgency. Agreed. Robert nodded, his crystalline skin pulsing with anticipation. Captain, set a course for the source of that energy signature. As the horizon changed trajectory, Robert and Kalara utilized their exosuits to interface with the ship's systems. The bioluminescent patterns on their skin synchronized with the suit's displays, providing them with real-time data analysis. I'm detecting precursor energy signatures, Robert reported, his eyes scanning the holographic readouts. It appears to be centered on a small planet orbiting a red dwarf star. Kalara's fingers danced across her own interface. Scans indicate it's an abandoned precursor outpost, but it's far from dormant now. As they approached the planet, the true scale of the situation became apparent. A shimmering energy barrier enveloped the entire world, its surface crackling with arcs of exotic particles. That barrier, Lieutenant Korg observed, his hybrid senses heightened. It's not just defensive. It's reconfiguring the planet's atmosphere. Dr. Zarovex confirmed his assessment. The atmosphere is becoming highly corrosive. Standard environmental suits won't last more than a few minutes down there. Robert activated his exosuit's advanced systems. These suits should protect us. We'll need to move fast and smart. Kalara nodded, her own suit humming to life. Agreed. We'll take a small team, in and out before that atmosphere can compromise our equipment. The landing party materialized on the planet's surface, immediately buffeted by howling winds laden with caustic particles. Robert stumbled, caught off guard by the planet's erratic gravitational field. Gravitational anomalies, he warned the team. Watch your step and stay close. They made their way towards the looming precursor structure, its alien architecture a stark contrast to the barren landscape. Suddenly, the air filled with a high-pitched whine. Incoming, Kalara shouted, her camouflage skin shifting to blend with the rocky terrain. A swarm of sleek, metallic drones descended upon them, energy weapons primed. Robert reached out with his mind, manipulating the local gravitational field. Several drones veered off course, crashing into each other in a shower of sparks. Kalara used the distraction to flank the swarm, her enhanced agility allowing her to leap impossible distances. She landed on one of the drones, jamming her fist into its central processor. The machine sputtered and died, taking two more with it as it plummeted to the ground. The team fought their way through waves of increasingly sophisticated defenses. Holographic decoys shimmered into existence, confusing their targeting systems. Clouds of nanobots attempted to infiltrate their suits, only to be repelled by rapidly adapting energy fields. With each challenge, Robert and Kalara felt their bodies changing, adapting. Robert's skin took on a metallic sheen, deflecting energy blasts that would have previously caused damage. Kalara found her neural pathways reconfiguring, allowing her to process information and react at superhuman speeds. As they reached the central chamber of the outpost, they came face to face with the source of the disturbance. The being before them was barely recognizable as humanoid, a grotesque fusion of organic matter and precursor technology. Subject X-37, Robert breathed, his voice a mix of awe and horror. The hybrid's voice reverberated through the chamber, more machine than organic. You are too late. I have merged with this facility. Soon all life in this sector will be upgraded, brought into a new age of hybrid supremacy. Kalara's eyes narrowed, her body tensing for combat. We can't let that happen. X-37 lashed out with tendrils of pure energy, forcing the team to scatter. Robert reached out with his mind, interfacing directly with the outpost's quantum computer core. He found himself in a digital landscape, locked in a battle of wills with X-37's consciousness. Meanwhile, Kalara engaged the hybrid's physical form, her enhanced strength and agility put to the test. She dodged arcs of destructive energy, countering with precisely aimed strikes at what she hoped were vulnerable points in X-37's cybernetic anatomy. The battle raged on multiple fronts, physical and digital. Robert delved deeper into the quantum core, searching for a weakness in X-37's control. Kalara's exosuit sparked and smoked as she pushed it to its limits, her own hybrid physiology adapting to compensate for the damage. In a moment of synchronicity, Robert isolated a critical vulnerability in X-37's neural network. "Kalara now," he shouted, creating a feedback loop in the quantum core. Kalara saw her opening as X-37 momentarily faltered. With a battle cry that echoed through the chamber, she delivered a devastating blow, severing the hybrid's primary connection to the outpost systems. X-37 let out an inhuman screech as its systems crashed. The energy barrier around the planet flickered and died, and the corrosive atmosphere began to dissipate. As the dust settled, Robert and Kalara approached the fallen hybrid. Its once powerful form now lay inert, dependent on the outpost systems for survival. "We need to contain it," Robert said, his voice heavy with the weight of their decision. "The precursor scientists at the Dyson Sphere might be able to help." As they secured X-37 for transport, Kalara discovered a hidden data core. "Robert, look at this. It's a precursor database. The amount of information here, it's staggering." Their moment of discovery was cut short by an alert from the horizon. Captain Vex's voice crackled over the comm. "Multiple ships approaching at high speed. Human and Klingon signatures. We need to leave now." Robert and Kalara shared a look of understanding. There was no time to explain their actions to the incoming fleet. The risk of exposure was too great. As they boarded their shuttle, the weight of their newfound knowledge and the unconscious form of X-37 with them, Robert felt a familiar tingling sensation. He looked down to see the bioluminescent patterns on his skin pulsing in a new rhythm, in perfect synchronization with Kalara's. The Horizon's hybrid engines flared to life, propelling the ship away from the planet and the approaching fleet. As the stars streaked by, Robert and Kalara began to sift through the recovered precursor data, searching for clues that might lead them to the remaining rogue hybrids. Their mission had only just begun, and the challenges ahead loomed large. But as Robert felt the resonance between his and Kalara's hybrid physiologies, he knew that together they were ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at them. As the Horizon streaked through space, leaving the planet and the approaching fleet behind, Robert and Kalara wasted no time. They immediately began interfacing with the ship's systems through their exosuits, initiating an intensive analysis of the recovered precursor data. The bridge hummed with activity as holographic displays flickered to life around them. Captain Thora Vex watched in fascination as the two hybrids worked in perfect synchronization, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in harmony with the ship's data streams. "Remarkable," Dr. Zara Vex murmured, monitoring their vital signs. "Their neural pathways are reconfiguring in real time to process this influx of information." Robert's eyes darted across the streams of data, his mind working at an unprecedented speed. "There," he said, his voice carrying a hint of excitement. "I've isolated coordinates for another rogue hybrid." Kalara nodded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Designation, Subject Y42. Location, a densely forested planet in the Epsilon Eridani system." Captain Vex didn't hesitate. "Plotting a course now. We'll engage our stealth systems to avoid detection by any patrolling vessels." As the Horizon changed direction, Robert and Kalara felt a tingling sensation throughout their bodies. They exchanged a glance, recognizing the familiar signs of adaptation. "Our physiologies continue to evolve," Kalara observed, flexing her fingers as new neural pathways formed. Robert nodded, feeling the changes himself. "We're becoming more efficient at processing and integrating this precursor knowledge." The journey to Epsilon Eridani was tense but uneventful. As they approached the planet, lush green forests filled the view screen, obscuring any sign of the rogue hybrid's presence. "Our scanning equipment is being interfered with by the dense canopy," Lieutenant Korg reported from his station. Robert stood, his exosuit humming with energy. "Then we'll have to rely on our enhanced senses. Kalara and I will lead a small team to the surface." Within minutes, Robert, Kalara, Lieutenant Korg, and Dr. Zara Vex materialized on the planet's surface. The air was thick with humidity, and the sounds of alien wildlife echoed through the towering trees. Kalara's skin shimmered, adapting to match the dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves. "This way," she said, her heightened senses picking up faint energy traces. As they pushed through the underbrush, a low growl rumbled nearby. Robert froze, extending his awareness. "We're not alone," he whispered. Suddenly, a massive creature with iridescent scales lunged from the foliage. Its natural camouflage had rendered it nearly invisible until the moment of attack. Robert reacted instinctively, manipulating the local gravitational field. The predator's leap slowed, giving Kalara time to dodge its razor-sharp claws. "Fascinating adaptation," Dr. Vex remarked, scanning the creature as it retreated. "The local fauna seems to have evolved unique defensive mechanisms." They pressed on, with Robert using his gravitational abilities to create paths through the most densely tangled vegetation. The team's progress was slow but steady until they reached a small clearing. Lieutenant Korg's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the ground. "These markings, they're not natural." Kalara knelt, running her hand over the disturbed earth. "No, they're not. We're close." As if in response to her words, the ground beneath them shuddered. Before anyone could react, the forest floor gave way, plunging them into darkness. They landed hard on a smooth metallic surface. As they regained their footing, lights flickered to life around them, revealing the unmistakable architecture of a precursor facility. "It appears we've triggered some kind of security system," Dr. Vex said, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. Robert stepped forward, interfacing his exosuit with a nearby control panel. "I'll try to bypass the defenses." As he worked, energy crackled around him. Suddenly, a surge of power coursed through his suit, overloading its systems. Robert staggered back, momentarily stunned. Kalara moved to support him. "Robert, are you all right?" He nodded, shaking off the disorientation. "I'm fine, but my suit's systems are temporarily offline. You'll have to take point." Without hesitation, Kalara took the lead. Her enhanced strength and agility proved invaluable as they navigated a series of increasingly complex physical obstacles. Laser grids, shifting floors, and holographic decoys challenged their progress at every turn. As they pushed deeper into the facility, signs of recent activity became more apparent. Scorch marks marred the walls, and discarded pieces of technology littered the corridors. "Y-42 has definitely been here," Lieutenant Korg observed, examining a partially disassembled precursor device. They finally reached a massive central chamber, its high ceiling lost in shadows. In the center stood Subject Y-42, surrounded by a tangle of salvaged precursor technology and writhing mutant plant life. The rogue hybrid turned, its form a grotesque fusion of organic matter and cybernetic enhancements. Its voice, when it spoke, was a discordant mixture of tones. "So the hunters have arrived," Y-42 said, tendrils of mutated vegetation coiling around its limbs. "You're too late. I've unlocked the secrets of accelerated evolution. This entire planet will become my laboratory." Robert, his exosuit now functioning again, stepped forward. "We can't let that happen, Y-42. Your experiments are too dangerous, too unstable." Y-42's response was a violent burst of energy, sending a wave of mutant plants surging towards the team. The battle had begun, and the fate of the planet hung in the balance. Balance. Kalara's enhanced reflexes allowed her to dodge the surge of mutant vegetation, while Robert used his gravitational manipulation to create a barrier, shielding Dr. Vex and Lieutenant Korg. "We need to neutralize Y-42 quickly," Kalara shouted, her voice barely audible over the chaos of the battle. "Its control over the local flora is growing stronger by the second." Robert nodded, his mind racing to formulate a plan. "If we can disrupt its connection to the precursor technology, we might have a chance to subdue it." As they fought their way closer to Y-42, the rogue hybrid unleashed a barrage of energy pulses, each one more potent than the last. The air crackled with ozone, and the very fabric of reality seemed to warp around them. Lieutenant Korg provided covering fire, his phaser cutting through swaths of mutant plants. "We can't hold this position much longer," he growled, his Klingon warrior instincts on high alert. Dr. Zara Vex, meanwhile, furiously worked on her tricorder, analyzing Y-42's energy signatures. "There's a pattern to its attacks," she called out. "If we time it right, we might be able to exploit a momentary weakness in its defenses." Robert and Kalara exchanged a glance, their hybrid physiologies allowing them to communicate volumes in that split second. They moved in perfect synchronization, weaving through the onslaught of vegetation and energy blasts. Kalara's adaptive camouflage shifted, making her nearly invisible as she flanked Y-42. Robert focused his gravitational powers, creating localized distortions that redirected the hybrid's attacks back upon itself. In a blur of motion, Kalara struck, her enhanced strength allowing her to sever several of the biomechanical tendrils, connecting Y-42 to its improvised precursor tech. The rogue hybrid howled in rage and pain, its control over the mutant flora momentarily faltering. Robert seized the opportunity, reaching out with his mind to interface directly with the precursor systems. He found himself in a digital landscape, once again locked in a battle of wills with a rogue hybrid's consciousness. As Robert engaged Y-42 in the virtual realm, Kalara continued her physical assault, her body adapting in real time to counter the hybrid's increasingly desperate attacks. Lieutenant Korg and Dr. Vex worked in tandem, the former providing tactical support while the latter attempted to stabilize the facility's systems. The battle raged on multiple fronts, physical and digital, each passing second bringing them closer to either victory or catastrophic failure. Robert delved deeper into the precursor code, searching for a way to shut down Y-42's connection to the planet's ecosystem. In a moment of clarity, Robert identified a critical vulnerability in Y-42's neural interface. "Kalara, now!" he shouted, creating a feedback loop in the precursor systems. Kalara, attuned to Robert's actions, delivered a precisely timed strike to Y-42's primary neural node. The rogue hybrid convulsed as its connection to the facility, and the planet's flora was abruptly severed. As Y-42 collapsed, the mutant vegetation withered and retreated. The facility's systems began to stabilize, the immediate threat neutralized. "We need to secure it for transport," Robert said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "The precursor scientists back at the Dyson Sphere will want to study this one as well." As they worked to contain Y-42, Dr. Vex made a startling discovery. "There's another energy signature," she reported, her eyes wide with surprise. "It's faint, but it matches the profile of a rogue hybrid. Designation, Subject Z-18. Before they could process this new information, Captain Thora Vex's voice crackled over their communicators. "We've got multiple ships entering the system. You need to get back to the horizon immediately." The team shared a look of understanding. There was no time for a thorough investigation of the facility. They had to move quickly. As they made their way back to the extraction point, Robert felt a familiar tingling sensation coursing through his body. He glanced at Kalara, noticing that her bioluminescent patterns were pulsing in a new rhythm, perfectly synchronized with his own. The Horizon's transporter beam enveloped them, just as the first distant rumbles of approaching ships echoed through the atmosphere. Within moments, they materialized on the bridge, the unconscious form of Y-42 secured in a stasis field. Captain Vex wasted no time. Tactical analysis shows a mix of human and Klingon vessels, along with some unknown configurations. "We need to leave now." As the Horizon's hybrid engines roared to life, Robert and Kalara focused their attention on the ship's long-range sensors. The faint energy signature of Subject Z-18 beckoned, a new challenge in their ongoing mission. "I've isolated the signal," Kalara reported, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "It's coming from a remote asteroid belt in a nearby star system." Robert nodded, feeling his body continuing to adapt and change. "Then that's where we're headed next. We can't let another rogue hybrid remain unchecked." As the Horizon navigated away from the planet, skillfully evading the approaching vessels, Robert and Kalara began preparing for their next mission. The ship's advanced sensors provided more detailed information about their target, revealing a faint energy signature matching that of Subject Z-18 emanating from the asteroid belt. Captain Thora Vex's expert piloting skills were put to the test as she guided the Horizon through the treacherous field of space debris. The ship's enhanced maneuvering capabilities allowed them to weave between asteroids of various sizes, some as large as small moons. "Approaching the source of the energy signature," Lieutenant Korg announced from his station. "Visual contact in 3, 2, 1. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a bizarre structure cobbled together from salvaged spacecraft parts and asteroid fragments. It was a testament to the resourcefulness and desperation of its creator. Remarkable, Dr. Zarovex murmured, her scientific curiosity piqued. It appears our rogue hybrid has been busy. Robert turned to Kalara, his expression resolute. We need to investigate that base. Are you ready? Kalara nodded, her eyes gleaming with willpower. Always. Within minutes, Robert, Kalara, and Lieutenant Korg were suited up and ready for their spacewalk. As they stepped into the airlock, Robert felt his exosuit adapting to the impending vacuum of space. The door hissed open, and they launched themselves towards the makeshift base. Their enhanced mobility and zero gravity made the approach seem almost effortless. However, as they neared the structure, they encountered an invisible barrier, a field of microscopic nanobots that attempted to interfere with their suit's systems. Kalara's brow furrowed in concentration as her adaptive camouflage began to shift and change. Suddenly, a pulse of electromagnetic energy emanated from her suit, disrupting the nanobots and clearing a path for the team. Impressive, Robert said, admiration clear in his voice. Your adaptations are becoming more intuitive. They breached the outer hull of the base, entering an airlock that cycled to pressurize the interior. As the inner door slid open, they were greeted by a sight that made even the hardened Lieutenant Korg pause. The makeshift corridors were lined with crude stasis pods, each containing partially formed hybrid beings suspended in a viscous fluid. Vials of hybrid DNA samples were scattered across workstations, alongside complex genetic sequencing equipment. It looks like Z-18 has been attempting to create a new generation of hybrids, Robert observed, his voice tight with concern. Kalara moved to a nearby computer terminal, her fingers flying across the alien interface. According to these logs, Z-18 is trying to build an army under its control. We need to shut this operation down. As they progressed deeper into the base, Robert couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His suspicions were confirmed when a series of heavy blast doors suddenly slammed shut, sealing off sections of the structure. It knows we're here, Lieutenant Korg growled, his phaser at the ready. Robert closed his eyes, focusing his gravitational manipulation abilities. With a grunt of effort, he forced open the nearest sealed door, the metal groaning in protest. Kalara moved to the next barrier, her enhanced strength allowing her to pry apart the stubborn doors. We're getting close, she said, her voice tense with anticipation. I can sense Z-18's presence nearby. They entered a vast central chamber, its walls lined with sophisticated equipment cobbled together from various alien technologies. In the center stood a subject Z-18, its body a grotesque fusion of organic and mechanical parts. The rogue hybrid had physically merged with the base's systems, tendrils of biomechanical matter spreading out like a web. Z-18's voice, when it spoke, was a discordant mixture of organic and synthetic tones. So the pawns of the precursors have finally arrived. You're too late to stop what I've set in motion. Before Robert could respond, Z-18 activated its defensive protocols. Robotic drones swarmed from hidden compartments, forcing the team into a frantic close-quarters battle. Kalara's combat skills shone as she dispatched multiple drones with precise, devastating strikes. Robert created localized gravity wells, trapping and crushing the mechanical assailants. Lieutenant Korg provided suppressing fire, his Klingon battle cries echoing through the chamber. As the fight intensified, Z-18 unleashed a barrage of energy attacks. Robert's exosuit took a direct hit, its systems fritzing and malfunctioning. In a split-second decision, he shed the damaged components, exposing his hybrid physiology to the hostile environment. To his amazement, his body rapidly adapted, developing a protective layer that allowed him to survive the harsh conditions. Seeing Robert's transformation, Kalara followed suit, removing the outer layers of her exosuit. Her body evolved before their eyes, becoming more resilient and powerful. Working in perfect synchronization, Robert and Kalara pressed their advantage. Robert created a gravitational singularity to contain Z-18's energy discharges, while Kalara maneuvered through the chaotic battlefield. With a final, precisely aimed strike, Kalara severed Z-18's connection to the base's systems. The rogue hybrid let out an inhuman screech as it collapsed, its grand plans crumbling around it. As Lieutenant Korg secured the incapacitated Z-18, a new alarm blared through the facility. The base's self-destruct sequence had been activated. "We need to shut it down and get out of here," Robert shouted, his mind already racing to find a solution. As they raced against time, their bodies continuing to adapt and evolve, Robert and Kalara knew that this was just the beginning. The challenges ahead would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine, but together they were ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at them. The unknown challenges that lay ahead would test their determination and push their abilities to new limits. As the Horizon navigated through the treacherous asteroid field, Robert and Kalara felt their bodies continue to change. A metallic sheen spread across their skin, glimmering under the harsh lights of the bridge. This new adaptation enhanced their resilience to extreme environments, a fact that would soon prove crucial. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain Thoravex's eyes widened as she checked the readouts. "We've got a hull breach, multiple systems failing." The bridge lurched, and a hissing sound filled the air as the atmosphere began to escape. The crew gasped for breath as the oxygen levels plummeted. Captain Vex struggled to remain conscious, her fingers fumbling with the controls. Robert and Kalara shared a quick glance, their newly developed abilities allowing them to withstand the rapidly thinning air. Without hesitation, they sprang into action. "We'll seal off the affected areas," Robert shouted, his voice carrying easily in the near vacuum. He rushed to a nearby control panel, his enhanced strength allowing him to pry open the emergency access hatch. Kalara moved with inhuman speed, her body adapting to the zero-gravity environment. She reached the manual override for the emergency bulkheads, her fingers dancing across the controls with practiced precision. With a series of loud clangs, the bulkheads slammed into place, halting the loss of atmosphere. The remaining crew members gulped in deep breaths as the environmental system stabilized. "Good work," Captain Vex rasped, her color slowly returning. "Now what caused this?" Dr. Zara Vex was already bent over a console, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. "It appears to be a sophisticated computer virus. It bypassed our security protocols and caused a cascade failure in multiple systems." "Can you isolate it?" Robert asked, moving to join her. Dr. Vex nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm working on it. This virus is unlike anything I've seen before. It's adapting to our countermeasures in real time." As Dr. Vex battled the digital intruder, Robert and Kalara turned their attention to the physical damage. They moved through the ship with fluid grace, their bodies now perfectly attuned to the microgravity environment. Using their enhanced strength and newly developed abilities, they patched hull breaches and rerouted power conduits. As they worked, Lieutenant Korg's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting a massive energy signature from a nearby nebula. It matches the profile of a rogue hybrid, but the power levels are off the charts." Captain Vex's expression hardened. "Send the data to the main bridge." Robert and Kalara returned to the bridge just as the sensor data appeared on the main view screen. The energy readings were unlike anything they had encountered before. "It's Subject Omega," Robert said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and dread. "We've heard whispers about it, but I never thought—" Kalara finished his thought. "If any of the factions pursuing us get their hands on this hybrid, the balance of power in the galaxy could shift dramatically." Captain Vex nodded grimly. "Then we have no choice. We need to neutralize this threat before it falls into the wrong hands." With expert precision, she guided the Horizon into the swirling gases of the nebula. The ship's hybrid systems adapted to the harsh environment, allowing them to navigate through areas that would have been lethal to conventional vessels. As they approached the source of the energy signature, a massive structure loomed before them. The space station was a bizarre amalgamation of human, Klingon, and precursor technologies, its very existence a testament to the power and influence of Subject Omega. "Prepare for a spacewalk," Captain Vex ordered. "Robert, Kalara, you're our best chance at infiltrating that station." As Robert and Kalara made their way to the airlock, they felt their bodies undergo yet another transformation. Bioluminescent patterns emerged on their skin, pulsing in complex rhythms that allowed them to communicate silently. Their muscles shifted and adapted, granting them unprecedented control in the zero-gravity environment. The airlock cycled open, and they launched themselves towards the alien station. Their movements were fluid and precise, easily avoiding the automated defense systems that guarded the structure's exterior. They reached an airlock and forced their way inside, their enhanced strength more than a match for the locking mechanisms. As the inner doors slid open, they found themselves in a maze-like corridor filled with hidden dangers. Robert's heightened senses detected a faint energy signature emanating from a nearby wall panel. He raised his hand, warning Kalara to stop. With careful movements, he manipulated the local gravitational field, revealing a hidden plasma trap that would have incinerated them instantly. Kalara's eyes narrowed as she scanned the corridor ahead. Her evolved vision allowed her to see spectrum beyond normal human perception. "There's a network of sensor beams ahead," she communicated through their bioluminescent link. "We'll need to time our movements carefully." They moved in perfect synchronization, their bodies weaving through the invisible web of sensors. Each step brought them closer to the heart of the station and the threat that lay within. As they progressed deeper, they encountered a vast chamber filled with stasis pods. Each pod contained a partially formed hybrid being, suspended in a viscous fluid. The scale of the operation was staggering. Robert interfaced with a nearby terminal, his hybrid physiology allowing him to process the vast amounts of data at inhuman speeds. His eyes widened as he absorbed the information. "Subject Omega is creating an army," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "These hybrids are designed to be deployed across key strategic locations in both human and Klingon space. The resulting chaos would destabilize entire sectors." Kalara was already moving, her body adapting once again to meet the new challenge. Her skin began to secrete a powerful sedative compound. "We need to neutralize these hybrids before they can be awakened," she said, her voice filled with urgency. As Kalara began to sabotage the life support systems for the stasis pods, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Subject Omega had detected their presence. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber. A squad of fully developed hybrid soldiers rounded the corner, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Robert and Kalara shared a quick glance, their bodies tensing for battle. The future of the cosmos hung in the balance as they prepared to face this new threat, knowing that failure was not an option. The hybrid soldiers charged, their movements a blur of superhuman speed and strength. Robert reached out with his gravitational powers, creating localized distortions that sent several attackers tumbling through the air. Kalara met the remaining hybrids head-on, her combat skills enhanced by her continuously evolving physiology. As the battle raged, the station shuddered ominously. Warnings flashed across nearby terminals, indicating a critical overload in the station's power core. The confrontation with Subject Omega loomed, but time was running out. Robert and Kalara fought their way through the chaos, their bodies adapting with each passing second to the escalating threats around them. They pushed deeper into the station, knowing that the final confrontation with Subject Omega would test them in ways they couldn't imagine. As they raced towards the central control room, the station shuddered violently, showering them with debris. Robert's gravitational powers deflected larger chunks of metal, while Kalara's enhanced reflexes allowed her to weave through the falling wreckage. The corridor ahead collapsed, blocking their path. Without hesitation, Robert reached out with his mind, manipulating the local gravitational field to clear the obstruction. Kalara darted forward, her newly evolved skin deflecting shards of twisted metal as she pushed through the gap. They burst into the control room, and the sight before them made them pause. Subject Omega had integrated itself into the station's mainframe, its massive form stretching across the entire chamber. Tendrils of biomechanical matter pulsed with energy, connecting the hybrid to various control systems. "By the stars," Kalara breathed, her bioluminescent patterns flashing in alarm. Robert's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. "We need to sever its connections to the station's systems. I'll focus on disrupting its gravitational anchors. You target its organic components." They launched into action, their movements a blur of superhuman speed and precision. Robert reached out with his powers, creating localized distortions that tore at Omega's mechanical connections. Kalara darted between the writhing tendrils, her adapted physiology allowing her to deliver devastating blows to vulnerable organic nodes. Omega retaliated, its massive form twisting and contorting as it fought to maintain control. Energy beams lanced out, forcing Robert and Kalara to dodge and weave. The station's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, but their evolved bodies adapted instantly to the changing conditions. As the battle intensified, warning klaxons blared throughout the station. Captain Thoravex's voice crackled over their comm units. "We're detecting a critical buildup in the station's power core. You have less than 10 minutes before total structural failure." Robert and Kalara shared a glance, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in silent communication. They redoubled their efforts, pushing their abilities to new limits. Robert's control over gravity intensified, allowing him to create localized singularities that tore away large portions of Omega's biomechanical body. Kalara's body responded to the escalating threat, her adaptive camouflage extending to manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum. She began emitting precise energy pulses that disrupted Omega's electronic components, causing cascading failures throughout its systems. Suddenly, the hybrid made a desperate move. Stasis pods lining the walls hissed open, releasing a horde of unstable hybrid soldiers. Omega's final act of defiance. Kalara's body reacted instantly, enhancing her ability to produce sedative compounds. A potent mist filled the air, quickly incapacitating the emerging hybrids. Meanwhile, Robert focused on containing Omega, creating a gravitational force field that prevented the rogue hybrid from extending its influence further. With Omega contained and the hybrid army neutralized, they turned their attention to the station's failing systems. Their evolved intellects worked in tandem, deciphering complex protocols and implementing emergency measures. The immediate threat of a core breach was averted, but the station remained critically damaged. "Multiple ships from the pursuing fleet have entered the nebula," Captain Vex informed them. "They're converging on our location. We need to move now." Robert and Kalara began the delicate process of extracting Omega from the station's systems, carefully severing the remaining connections. As they worked, Kalara's enhanced senses detected a faint life sign within Omega's biomechanical mass. "Robert," she called, her voice tight with urgency. "There's someone inside." They investigated further, discovering an unconscious humanoid figure at Omega's core. The implications were staggering. This could be the original subject from which the hybrid entity evolved. With time running out, they formulated a plan. Robert created a protective gravitational bubble around the humanoid core, while Kalara employed her newfound electromagnetic manipulation to carefully disconnect the organic components from the surrounding biomass. The station groaned and shuddered around them as they worked. Systems failed in cascading waves, and the horizon moved into position, extending its docking ports for a rapid evacuation. Carrying the extracted humanoid and critical data about Omega and the hybrid army, Robert and Kalara fought their way through the disintegrating station. They leapt and bounded through collapsing corridors, their evolved physiology allowing them to navigate the treacherous path. As they reached the horizon, the first ships from the pursuing fleet emerged from the nebula's swirling gases. Captain Thoravex's voice rang out, "Initiating emergency departure. Brace yourselves." The ship's hybrid engines roared to life, accelerating away from the station just as weapons fire from the incoming vessels lit up space around them. The horizon rocked violently as it pushed through the barrage, narrowly avoiding direct hits. Behind them, the damaged station finally succumbed to its accumulated damage. The resulting explosion sent a massive shockwave rippling through the nebula, buffeting the horizon and disabling several of the pursuing ships. Captain Vex's expert piloting skills guided them through the chaos, using the nebula's dense gases and debris field to mask their retreat. Robert and Kalara, still catching their breath from the harrowing escape, turned their attention to their unexpected passenger. The humanoid, now separated from Omega's biomechanical components, showed signs of returning to consciousness. As they prepared to revive the individual, Robert and Kalara exchanged a meaningful look. The information they'd gathered about Omega and the hybrid army could be crucial in preventing future threats and potentially stabilizing relations between humans and Klingons. As the Horizon raced away from the nebula, its crew now in possession of vital intelligence and a living link to the most powerful rogue hybrid encountered, Robert and Kalara knew their mission was just getting started. Their bodies, still adapting to the extreme events they'd endured, thrummed with newfound power and potential. The humanoid stirred, eyelids fluttering as consciousness slowly returned. Robert and Kalara leaned forward, their enhanced senses alert for any sign of threat or distress. As the individual's eyes opened, revealing a gaze filled with confusion and fear, they realized that the next phase of their journey was about to begin, one that would challenge not just their evolved abilities, but their understanding of the very nature of human and hybrid existence. As the humanoid's eyes focused, recognition dawned on Robert and Kalara's faces. "Dr. Ilara Voss," Robert breathed, his enhanced memory instantly recalling her file from the mission briefing. The woman blinked rapidly, her gaze darting around the medical bay. "Where? How?" she croaked, her voice hoarse from disuse. Kalara stepped forward, her skin shifting to emit a calming pheromone. "You're safe, Dr. Voss. We extracted you from Subject Omega's biomechanical matrix. Can you tell us what happened?" As Dr. Voss gathered her thoughts, Captain Thoravex's voice came over the intercom. "We've cleared the nebula, but long-range sensors are picking up multiple signatures in pursuit. We need a heading and fast." Robert turned to Dr. Voss, his expression urgent. "Doctor, we need information. The hybrid army, the other facilities, where are they?" Dr. Voss struggled to sit up, her muscles atrophied from her time integrated into Omega. "There's so much. I was conscious for all of it, trapped in Omega's mind." She shuddered, then steeled herself. "I can help, but you need to understand. This goes deeper than just rogue hybrids. There's a hidden faction embedded in both human and Klingon power structures. They're the ones pushing for weaponized hybridization." Kalara's bioluminescent patterns flashed an alarm. "This complicates matters significantly. We need a secure location to process this information and plan our next move." Robert nodded, already interfacing with the ship's navigation systems through his neural link. "I know a place. Sending coordinates to the bridge now." The Horizon's engines hummed as it changed course, pushing deeper into uncharted space. Hours later, the ship descended through the atmosphere of a lush, uninhabited world. Dense jungle canopies stretched as far as the eye could see, broken only by the occasional glint of water from winding rivers. As the ship touched down in a small clearing, Robert and Kalara's bodies began to tingle. Their skin prickled, cells rapidly mutating to adapt to the new environment. Within moments, their epidermis had developed a faint green tint, photosynthetic organelles emerging just beneath the surface. "Fascinating," Dr. Voss murmured, watching the transformation with scientific curiosity. "Your adaptive capabilities far exceed our initial projections." Kalara flexed her fingers, feeling the surge of energy as her body began to process sunlight. "This will certainly prove useful for extended operations planetside." The team disembarked, Robert and Kalara's enhanced senses immediately cataloging the surrounding area for potential threats and resources. As they began to set up a temporary base, Robert's gravitational senses detected an anomaly beneath the forest floor. "There's something here," he said, kneeling to brush away a layer of fallen leaves. His fingers found the edge of an ancient stone slab, worn smooth by centuries of erosion. Kalara joined him, her evolved vision piercing through the layers of soil and rock. "It's some kind of structure, massive, and definitely not natural." With painstaking care, they excavated the entrance, revealing a vast underground complex. As they ventured inside, dormant systems hummed to life, responding to their presence. Holographic displays flickered into existence, filling the air with streams of data in an unknown language. Dr. Voss gasped, her eyes wide with recognition. "This is precursor technology. I've seen prototypes like this in the early stages of the hybridization project. This facility, it could hold the key to stabilizing the rogue hybrids. As they pushed deeper into the complex, the facility's security systems activated. Robotic sentries emerged from hidden alcoves, their ancient weapons powering up with an ominous hum. Robert and Kalara moved in perfect sync, their evolved physiology allowing them to dodge energy blasts and disable the sentries with precision strikes. In the central chamber, they found the prize, a fully functional precursor genetic manipulation device. Dr. Voss approached it reverently, her fingers dancing across its control surface. With this, we could refine the hybridization process, eliminate the instabilities. We could end the threat without bloodshed. As they prepared to transport the device back to the horizon, alarms blared throughout the complex. Captain Vex's voice crackled over their comms. Multiple ships entering the atmosphere. Signatures match both human and Klingon military vessels, plus several unknowns. We've been found. Robert's mind raced, formulating a plan. We need to move now. Kalara, help me disassemble this device. We'll transport it in sections. As they worked, Kalara's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of approaching forces. Ground troops incoming. I'll buy us some time. She darted out of the chamber, her body adapting once again. Her ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields expanded, allowing her to influence the local wildlife. A swarm of bioluminescent insects rose at her command, creating a disorienting light show to confuse the approaching soldiers. Massive tree-dwelling creatures, awakened by her electromagnetic pulse, began to move through the canopy, further obscuring the enemy's advance. Robert, meanwhile, used his gravitational powers to create a distortion field around the horizon in their evacuation route. Light bent around them, providing an extra layer of concealment as they rushed to load the precursor technology onto the ship. With the device secured and the pursuing forces temporarily stalled, the team boarded the horizon. Captain Vex's hands flew across the controls, initiating an emergency takeoff sequence. The ship's hybrid engines roared to life, pushing them rapidly through the atmosphere. As they broke through the planet's exosphere, they found themselves surrounded by a blockade of enemy ships. Robert and Kalara took control of the defensive systems, their neural interfaces allowing for unprecedented accuracy. Energy beams lanced out, disabling enemy weapon systems with surgical precision. Captain Vex executed a series of complex maneuvers, finding a narrow gap in the enemy formation. The horizon shot through the opening, engines straining as they pushed to maximum acceleration. As the ship entered hyperspace, Robert and Kalara suddenly staggered, overwhelmed by a rush of new sensory input. Their consciousness expanded, allowing them to perceive the fluctuations in the hyperspace field surrounding the ship. I can see everything, Robert gasped, his eyes wide and unfocused. The currents, the eddies in hyperspace. There are faster routes, safer paths. Kalara nodded, her own senses overwhelmed. But it's too much. Our bodies can't handle this level of input. Dr. Voss rushed to their side, helping them to the medical bay. As she worked to stabilize their conditions, Captain Vex set a course for a secret rendezvous point. The horizon raced through hyperspace, carrying its precious cargo of precursor technology and vital intelligence. Robert and Kalara, their bodies once again pushed to evolutionary limits, faced the challenge of mastering their expanding abilities. As they approached their hidden destination, the destiny of the universe hung in the balance, with the threat of rogue hybrids and a hidden faction looming on the horizon. As they recovered from the intense sensory overload, Robert and Kalara felt their bodies adapting once again, neurons rewiring to process the vast influx of information. The horizon decelerated as it approached a dense asteroid field, seemingly unremarkable amidst the vastness of space. Captain Vex's hands danced across the control panel, inputting a complex series of commands. Suddenly, a shimmering distortion appeared between two massive asteroids, revealing the outline of a cloaked space station. Docking sequence initiated, Vex announced as the ship maneuvered towards the hidden structure. Robert and Kalara, now steady on their feet, helped Dr. Voss prepare the precursor device for transport. As the horizon's docking clamps engaged with a satisfying thunk, the team moved swiftly to unload their precious cargo. The station's interior hummed with activity as scientists and engineers, handpicked for their expertise and loyalty, swarmed around the newly arrived precursor technology. Dr. Voss immediately took charge, directing the setup of a secure laboratory. "We need to interface this with our existing systems," she instructed, her earlier frailty replaced by focused tenacity. "Robert, Kalara, your unique physiology could provide invaluable insights. Would you be willing to undergo some non-invasive scans?" The evolved couple agreed, their curiosity matching the scientists' enthusiasm. As they submitted to a battery of tests, Robert and Kalara became aware of a strange tingling sensation across their skin. Looking down, they watched in amazement as their epidermis began to shift and change, taking on the color and texture of their surroundings. "Incredible," Dr. Voss breathed, adjusting her instruments to capture the transformation. "Your bodies are developing a form of adaptive camouflage. This could be a response to the stress of your hyperspace perception." Over the next few days, Robert and Kalara honed this new ability, learning to consciously control their skin's appearance. They used their camouflage to assist in securing sensitive areas of the station, blending seamlessly with walls and equipment to test and improve security measures. As the research team made progress in understanding the precursor device, Captain Vex received an encrypted transmission. Her face grew taut as she decoded the message, then called for an immediate meeting with the core team. "We've got a lead," she announced, bringing up a holographic display of a remote moon. "There's a secret facility here, run by the faction behind the rogue hybrids. My sources say they are holding several captured subjects for experimentation." Robert leaned in, studying the facility's defenses. "Heavy security, but nothing we can't handle with our new capabilities." Kalara nodded in agreement. "If we can get inside, we might be able to gather critical intelligence on their operations." Dr. Voss held up a vial containing a fluorescent blue liquid. "We've developed a prototype stabilizing agent based on the precursor technology. It's untested, but it could potentially neutralize the volatile nature of the rogue hybrids." The team quickly formulated a plan. Robert and Kalara would lead an infiltration mission to the secret facility, armed with the prototype agent and their enhanced abilities. As they prepared for departure, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. "Multiple ships entering the sector," Vex reported, her fingers flying over the tactical display. "Signatures match both human and Klingon military vessels, plus several unknowns. They found us." The station erupted into controlled chaos as personnel rushed to evacuate. Robert and Kalara's camouflage abilities proved invaluable, allowing them to coordinate the movement of critical research data and equipment to the horizon without detection. As the enemy fleet closed in, Robert and Kalara boarded a specially modified stealth shuttle. The sleek craft, barely larger than a fighter, was equipped with advanced cloaking technology and the precious vials of stabilizing agent. "Good luck," Captain Vex's voice crackled over the comm as the shuttle detached from the station. "We'll draw them away and rendezvous at the secondary location." The horizon burst from its hiding place, engines flaring as it engaged the approaching fleet. The larger ship's sudden appearance provided the perfect distraction, allowing the stealth shuttle to slip away unnoticed. Robert piloted the shuttle with preternatural precision, his enhanced senses allowing him to navigate the treacherous asteroid field at speeds that would have been suicidal for an ordinary pilot. Kalara monitored the shuttle's systems, making minute adjustments to the cloaking field to avoid detection by enemy patrols. As they cleared the asteroid field and entered open space, Robert set a course for the remote moon. The journey was tense, requiring constant vigilance to avoid the increased military traffic in the sector. Several times they were forced to power down all non-essential systems in drift, using their camouflage abilities to blend the shuttle's hull with the darkness of space as enemy ships passed within meters of their position. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of silent, nerve-wracking travel, the moon appeared on their sensors. Robert executed a low-altitude approach, skimming the barren, crater-pocked surface to avoid orbital detection systems. They touched down in a deep ravine, the shuttle's landing struts settling into the loose, gray soil with a soft crunch. Clad in sleek environmental suits adapted to work with their camouflage abilities, Robert and Kalara exited the shuttle. They paused for a moment, allowing their bodies to acclimate to the low gravity. With a shared nod of grit, they began their approach to the secret facility. The harsh landscape was a maze of sharp rocks and deep shadows, but the evolved couple moved with fluid grace, their enhanced physiology allowing them to traverse the difficult terrain with ease. As they crested a ridge, the facility came into view, a sprawling complex of low, prefabricated buildings surrounded by a shimmering energy barrier. Robert's gravitational senses detected the complex web of security measures surrounding the perimeter. He gestured to Clara, who nodded in understanding. Working in perfect synchronization, they began to manipulate the local gravitational and electromagnetic fields, creating a bubble of distorted space around them. Slowly, carefully, they approached the energy barrier. Security drones buzzed overhead, their sensors sweeping back and forth, but the distortion field rendered Robert and Clara invisible to their scans. With exquisite precision, they slipped through a gap in the barrier's coverage, their evolved nervous systems allowing them to pass through the charged field without triggering alarms. Inside the perimeter, Robert and Clara pressed themselves against the wall of the nearest building, their skins shifting to match the dull gray of the metal panels. They moved silently along the wall, searching for an entry point. Clara's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of approaching footsteps, and they froze in place, becoming nearly invisible as a pair of guards walked past, oblivious to their presence. When the coast was clear, Robert located an access panel and interfaced with it, his neural enhancements allowing him to bypass the security protocols in seconds. A door slid open with a soft hiss, and they slipped inside. The interior of the facility was a maze of sterile corridors and locked doors. Robert and Clara moved swiftly but cautiously, their camouflage adapting to each new environment. They encountered several security checkpoints, but their ability to blend with their surroundings allowed them to wait patiently for openings to slip past unnoticed. Finally, they reached a heavily secured door marked Laboratory Alpha. Clara placed her hand on the access panel, using her electromagnetic manipulation to override the lock. The door slid open, revealing a sight that made even their enhanced hearts skip a beat. The laboratory was filled with stasis pods, each containing a motionless figure. Holographic displays hovered above each pod, showing a dizzying array of biological data. Robert moved to a central console, quickly downloading critical files while Clara examined the pods. "These must be the captured rogue hybrids," she whispered, her voice tight with a mixture of anger and pity. "The experiments they've been subjected to, it's barbaric." Robert joined her, the prototype stabilizing agent in hand. "We need to act quickly. Once we administer the agent, there's no telling how they'll react." As they prepared to open the first pod, a shrill alarm suddenly pierced the air. Red warning lights began to flash, and the sound of running feet echoed from the corridor outside. "Our infiltration's been detected," Robert said, his voice calm despite the danger. "We need to move fast." The laboratory door burst open, and armed guards poured in, weapons raised. Robert and Clara sprang into action, their evolved reflexes and strength allowing them to engage multiple opponents simultaneously. They fought with precision and efficiency, disarming and disabling the guards without lethal force. In the chaos of the fight, a stray energy blast struck one of the stasis pods. The containment field flickered and failed, and the pod hissed open. A massive, misshapen figure lurched out, its eyes wild with confusion and rage. The rogue hybrid let out a deafening roar and began to rampage through the laboratory, smashing equipment and sending guards flying with sweeps of its powerful arms. Robert and Clara found themselves caught between the remaining guards, the rampaging hybrid, and the urgent need to administer the stabilizing agent to the other subjects. As they fought to maintain control of the situation, a new alarm began to sound, deeper and more ominous than the first. A computerized voice echoed through the facility. "Warning, self-destruct sequence activated. All personnel evacuate immediately. Detonation in 10 minutes. Robert and Clara exchanged a look of relentless drive. With the clock now ticking, they faced an impossible choice. Attempt to subdue the rogue hybrid and stabilize the remaining subjects, or abandon the mission and escape with the intelligence they'd already gathered. The fate of the captured hybrids, and perhaps the future of human-Klingon relations, hung in the balance as chaos engulfed the doomed facility. The fate of the captured hybrids, and perhaps the future of human-Klingon relations, hung in the balance as chaos engulfed the doomed laboratory. Robert and Kalara exchanged a quick glance, their enhanced nervous systems processing the situation in microseconds. Without a word, they sprang into action. Kalara darted to the nearest stasis pod, her fingers flying over the control panel as she initiated the release sequence. Robert turned to face the rampaging hybrid, raising his hands as he focused his gravitational manipulation abilities. The air around the unstable hybrid shimmered and distorted. The creature roared in confusion as an invisible force pressed against it from all sides, containing its fury within a makeshift force field. Robert gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead as he strained to maintain control. "Kalara, we need to move fast," he called out, his voice steady despite the effort. "How many can we stabilize?" Kalara was already administering the prototype agent to the first awakened hybrid. "I've got 3 viable subjects," she responded, her movements swift and precise. "The other 2 pods are too damaged. We'll have to leave them." As Kalara worked to stabilize the remaining subjects, Robert maintained his focus on containing the rogue hybrid. The creature hammered against the invisible barrier, each impact sending shock waves through Robert's body. He could feel his newly developed metallic skin absorbing and redirecting the energy, but he knew he couldn't hold out indefinitely. The computerized voice continued its ominous countdown. 7 minutes to detonation. Kalara finished administering the stabilizing agent to the third hybrid. "Done," she announced, moving swiftly to a nearby computer terminal. "Downloading the remaining data now." Her hands blurred over the keyboard, bypassing security protocols and extracting critical information. Within seconds, she had transferred everything to a portable storage device. "Got it," she said, pocketing the device. "Now for our exit strategy." Concentrating intensely, Kalara extended her electromagnetic control throughout the facility's systems. Sparks flew from control panels as she systematically short-circuited the security measures, blocking their escape route. Doors slid open, and warning lights flickered and died. "Path clear," she reported. "Robert, can you maintain that field while we move?" Robert nodded, his expression resolute with exertion. "I'll manage. Let's go." They began their desperate escape, Kalara guiding the dazed but stable hybrids while Robert brought up the rear, the contained rogue hybrid floating within its gravitational prison. They moved swiftly through the corridors, Kalara's enhanced hearing allowing her to navigate around pockets of remaining security personnel. 4 minutes to detonation. The group reached a junction, and Kalara paused, her heightened senses scanning for the best route. "This way," she said, leading them down a narrow passage. "I detect a large open space ahead, likely a hangar bay." They burst into the cavernous hangar, immediately spotting a sleek transport ship large enough to accommodate their entire group. Kalara sprinted to the ship's access panel, her fingers dancing over the controls as she bypassed the security protocols. 2 minutes to detonation. The ship's engines hummed to life as Kalara completed the launch sequence. Robert herded the stabilized hybrids aboard, his concentration still fixed on containing the rogue subject. As they prepared for takeoff, a deafening roar echoed through the hangar. The unstable hybrid had redoubled its efforts to break free, its massive form distorting within the gravitational field. Robert stumbled, his control slipping. "I can't hold it much longer," he gasped. Kalara's mind raced, formulating a plan in an instant. Without hesitation, she activated her chameleon-like camouflage, her body seamlessly blending with the ship's interior. "Lure it inside," she called out. "I'll handle the rest." Robert released his gravitational hold, allowing the rogue hybrid to charge forward. It barreled into the ship, searching frantically for its prey. Kalara's voice echoed from the cargo hold, drawing the creature deeper into the vessel. With a final burst of strength, Robert sealed the cargo bay doors, trapping the unstable subject inside. 30 seconds to detonation. Robert leapt into the pilot's seat, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to quickly familiarize himself with the controls. The ship lifted off, maneuvering through the hangar bay doors just as the first explosions rocked the facility. A massive shock wave slammed into the transport as they cleared the moon's atmosphere. Warning lights flashed across the control panel as the propulsion systems took heavy damage. Robert focused his gravitational abilities once more, creating a buffer zone around the ship to minimize the impact. As they struggled to put distance between themselves and the destroyed facility, multiple signals appeared on the radar. Enemy vessels alerted by the explosion were closing in fast. The transport ship, not built for combat or high-speed maneuvers, was quickly outpaced. Just as capture seemed inevitable, a familiar shape emerged from hyperspace directly ahead of them. The horizon, its weapons already blazing, tore through the enemy formation. Captain Thoravex's voice crackled over the comm system. "Looks like you could use a lift. Bring her in and let's get out of here." Robert piloted the damaged transport towards the horizon, while Kalara channeled her electromagnetic abilities into the failing engines, coaxing every last ounce of power from them. They executed a risky mid-space docking maneuver, the transport's airlock connecting with the horizons with a resounding clang. As soon as they were secure, Captain Vex's voice rang out. "All hands, brace for emergency jump." The Horizon's hybrid drive engaged, catapulting them into hyperspace with a bone-jarring lurch. The sudden acceleration sent power surges cascading through the ship's systems. Alarms blared as radiation levels in engineering spiked to dangerous levels. Robert and Kalara exchanged a determined look. Without a word, they raced towards the heart of the ship, their evolved physiology allowing them to withstand the mounting danger. As they worked feverishly to stabilize the ship's core, they felt a strange tingling sensation spreading across their skin. Looking down, they watched in amazement as their bodies underwent another transformation. Their skin took on a metallic sheen, capable of absorbing and redirecting the energy surging around them. This new adaptation allowed them to handle the raw power coursing through the ship's systems, their hands moving with inhuman speed to reroute circuits and contain the radiation leaks. Despite their efforts, the strain of the emergency jump proved too much for the Horizon systems. With a violent shudder, the ship dropped out of hyperspace, alarms screaming as multiple systems failed simultaneously. Captain Vex's voice came over the intercom, tight with tension. "All hands, prepare for emergency landing. This is not a drill." As the Horizon plummeted towards an unknown planet, Robert and Kalara raced to the bridge, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them on the surface below. The Horizon's emergency landing was rough, but the ship's advanced hull integrity systems managed to keep the crew and their precious cargo intact. As the dust settled, Robert and Kalara emerged from the bridge, their metallic skins still shimmering with residual energy from their efforts to stabilize the ship's systems during the descent. Captain Thoravex's voice crackled over the ship's intercom. "All hands, report status. Engineering team, assess the damage and begin repairs. Medical team, check on our guests." Robert and Kalara exchanged a determined look. "We need to secure the area," Robert said, his enhanced senses already scanning their surroundings. "There might be resources nearby that could help with repairs." Kalara nodded, her electromagnetic abilities probing the ship's hull for weak points. "I'll coordinate with engineering. You take a team and scout the perimeter." As they stepped out of the horizon, the alien landscape stretched before them, a rugged terrain of rocky outcroppings and sparse vegetation under a purplish sky. Robert assembled a small team of crew members, their uniforms still bearing scorch marks from the crash. "We'll start with that ridge, Verstantom," Robert said, pointing to a nearby elevation. "Keep your eyes open for anything useful. Water sources, mineral deposits, or signs of intelligent life." The team moved out, their footsteps crunching on the gravelly surface. As they approached the ridge, Robert noticed a dark opening at its base. "Looks like a cave system," he observed. "It could provide shelter if we need to evacuate the ship." Cautiously, they entered the cave, activating their wrist-mounted illuminators. The beam of light revealed a twisting tunnel that led deeper into the planet's crust. As they ventured further, the air grew cooler and damper. Suddenly, Robert's enhanced hearing picked up a faint sound. "Wait!" he whispered, holding up a hand to halt the team. "Do you hear that?" The others strained to listen, but their unmodified ears couldn't detect what Robert's could. He moved forward, following the sound until it grew louder, the unmistakable trickle of water. "This way," he urged, quickening his pace. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern, and there, glistening in the light of their illuminators, was an underground reservoir. "Kalara," Robert activated his communicator, his voice tight with excitement. "We found water. Sending coordinates now." As Kalara acknowledged the transmission, Robert noticed something unusual about the cave walls. He approached for a closer look, his fingers brushing against a strange, glittering substance embedded in the rock. "These mineral deposit," he murmured, feeling a familiar tingling sensation where his skin made contact. "They seem to have properties similar to our new skin." Kalara's voice came through the communicator. "Collect samples. If we can harness those properties, it might be the key to repairing the Horizon's damaged systems." Robert carefully extracted several chunks of the mineral, storing them in his pack. As he worked, a low rumble reverberated through the cave. Small rocks and debris began to rain down from the ceiling. "Everyone out now!" Robert shouted, ushering his team towards the exit. But as they reached the tunnel, a larger tremor shook the cavern. With a deafening crack, part of the ceiling collapsed, cutting off their escape route. Robert's gravitational manipulation instinctively activated, creating a protective field that shielded them from the falling rocks. As the dust settled, they found themselves separated from the main cavern. "Kalara," Robert called through his communicator, coughing as he inhaled the dusty air. "We're trapped. The tunnel's blocked. We'll have to find another way out." "Understood," Kalara replied, her voice calm despite the situation. "I'm on my way with a rescue team. Stay put and conserve your resources." Robert surveyed their surroundings, his enhanced vision penetrating the gloom. "No," he decided. "We can't wait. There's another passage here. It might lead to the surface." With no other choice, the team pressed on, following the new tunnel as it wound deeper into the planet's crust. The air grew warmer, and a faint glow began to illuminate their path. As they rounded a bend, the tunnel opened into an immense underground chamber that took their breath away. The cavern was filled with bioluminescent plants, their soft light painting the rocky walls in ethereal hues of blue and green. "Incredible," Robert breathed, his scientific mind already cataloging the potential uses for these unique flora. This could be a sustainable food source for the crew. As they moved through the dense vegetation, Robert noticed movement in the soil. He knelt down, his enhanced vision focusing on tiny worm-like creatures burrowing through the earth. Carefully, he scooped up a handful of the creatures, feeling a strange tingling in his palms as he did so. To his surprise, the worms seemed to respond to his touch, their movements aligning with the bioelectric field generated by his hybrid physiology. "Kalara," he called through the communicator, "you need to see this. We found something that could change everything." As if in response to his words, a distant rumble echoed through the cavern. The bioluminescent plants pulsed brighter for a moment, then dimmed. Robert and his team exchanged worried glances, knowing that their journey was far from finished, and that the planet still held many secrets waiting to be uncovered. Discovered. Robert tensed, ready to shield his team from potential danger, but the rumbling faded as quickly as it had begun. "Everyone all right?" he asked, scanning his team for injuries. Nods and murmurs of assent answered him. As they caught their breath, Robert's communicator crackled to life. "Robert, Kalara here. We've picked up seismic activity near your location. What's your status?" "We're fine," Robert replied. "But we've found something incredible down here. We need to investigate further." "Negative," Kalara's voice was firm. "The storm's intensifying. Return to base immediately." Robert hesitated, torn between his scientific curiosity and the need for caution. "Understood. We're on our way back." As they retraced their steps through the luminescent cavern, Robert couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the verge of a significant discovery. The bioluminescent plants, the strange worms, the energy-absorbing minerals, it all seemed connected somehow. The team emerged from the cave system just as the alien sky erupted into a dazzling display of electrical energy. Lightning arced between towering storm clouds, illuminating the landscape in brief, violet flashes. Kalara met them at the entrance, her metallic skin reflecting the storm's fury. "Inside now!" she shouted over the howling wind. Once safely within the Horizon's damaged hull, Robert and Kalara retreated to a quiet corner to debrief. As Robert described their findings, Kalara's eyes widened with interest. These discoveries could be the key to repairing the ship, she mused. But more importantly, I think they're all part of something bigger. Robert nodded, feeling a familiar tingle of excitement. I had the same thought. There's something about this planet. It's almost as if it was designed for beings like us. As if in response to his words, a shared vision suddenly overwhelmed them. Images flashed through their minds. Vast underground complexes, strange machines pulsing with energy, and creatures that defied description. When the vision faded, they found themselves staring at each other in amazement. Did you see? Robert began. Kalara nodded, her expression a mix of wonder and drive. We need to go back. There's something down there calling to us. They waited for the storm to subside, using the time to plan their expedition and gather supplies. As soon as the weather cleared, Robert and Kalara set out, leaving Captain Vex and Dr. Voss in charge of the ongoing repairs. Guided by their shared vision, they ventured deeper into the cave system than before. The bioluminescent plants grew denser as they descended, their soft glow barely illuminating the path ahead. After hours of careful navigation through winding tunnels and treacherous drops, they emerged into a vast chamber unlike anything they had seen before. The walls were smooth and geometrically perfect, clearly artificial in origin. At the center of the chamber stood a towering structure that pulsed with a faint blue light. This is it, Kalara breathed, her voice filled with awe. A precursor outpost. As they approached the structure, panels on its surface began to light up, responding to their presence. Robert reached out to touch one of the glowing sections, and a holographic interface sprang to life. It's some kind of biological research station, he said, his eyes darting across the alien symbols. But the language, I can't make sense of it. Kalara stepped forward, her hand hovering over the interface. Let me try something. She closed her eyes, focusing on the strange tingling sensation that had been growing stronger since they entered the chamber. Suddenly, her body began to glow with the same blue light as the structure. The holographic display flickered and changed, the alien symbols rearranging themselves into something more familiar. How did you do that? Robert asked, astounded. Kalara opened her eyes, looking just as surprised as he was. I'm not sure. It's like the outpost recognized me somehow. As they explored the newly accessible interface, a soft hum filled the air. A section of the floor slid open, revealing a sleek, cylindrical object that rose from the depths of the station. Robert and Kalara exchanged a wary glance before approaching the object. As they drew near, its surface shimmered and a voice emanated from within, not audible, but resonating directly in their minds. Greetings, viable subjects. This facility has been dormant for 37.2 million solar cycles, awaiting the arrival of suitable hybrid life forms. Your genetic profiles indicate successful integration of multiple species, initiating full interface protocol. Before they could react, tendrils of blue energy shot out from the cylinder, enveloping Robert and Kalara. They felt no pain, only a rush of information flooding their consciousness. Images, data, and concepts beyond their understanding cascaded through their minds. As the energy dissipated, they found themselves on their knees gasping for breath. The voice in their minds spoke again, this time clearer and more defined. Interface complete. I am the precursor artificial intelligence designated as Nexus. You now have access to the collected knowledge of the precursor hybridization experiments. Please state your primary inquiry. Robert and Kalara looked at each other, their minds reeling from the influx of information. They had stumbled upon something far beyond their wildest imaginations, a discovery that could change the course of their mission and reshape their understanding of the universe itself. Kalara was the first to find her voice. Nexus, she said, her tone filled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Tell us everything you know about this planet and its purpose. As Nexus began to reveal the true nature of their alien world, Robert and Kalara realized that their adventure was only just beginning. The secrets of the precursors lay before them, waiting to be unraveled, and with them the key to unlocking the full potential of their hybrid existence.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.